Welcome back to Cultivated Live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. This is our third day.
Yes.
I feel like I'm never going to leave Planet 13.
We live here now.
I think I'd like to live here. What we have seen so far, we've had tons of great interviews. If you've been following along, it's amazing. We've also seen gummies being made.
Yes.
On Wednesday, and then we saw beverages being canned on Thursday.
It's a relaxing day today.
It's like nobody's working yet. Because Friday is the day they sell them.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so it actually was busier yesterday at the dispensary, and I'm sure we're going to see it influx now. So we're heading into our third day. We have Elizabeth Case with us. I'm going to get the law firm correct. She's a lawyer in New York, Ruskin, Moscow, and Faltacek. I got it. But importantly to all of that, and there's been two other people that I've known for over 20 years that have come in, but you, I think, I've probably known longer, except for my brother, than anybody we've talked to. Because we went to camp together.
It's unbelievable.
You went to summer camp?
Yes.
We went to sleepaway camp together when we were like 10.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So we did an event in New York in my previous iteration of Cannabis Media, and we did an event in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And after the show, I must have mentioned something. Oh, yeah. I must have mentioned something about being a kid from Massachusetts, went to camp in New Hampshire, and you said, I went to camp in New Hampshire afterwards. And I said, yeah, we went to camp together. And that was now a year, 2 years ago almost.
Yeah. And then what a long, strange trip it's been since then.
Yes. Well, yeah, because New York was on the cusp then.
What has happened?
Cutting edge.
Nothing.
We're
Ready to
to
go.
pounce. Yeah.
But it hasn't happened such.
No, it's been the slowest rollout, I think, of all the states.
Yes.
And it's sort of ironic and strange that New York, of all places, is having the biggest problem with getting their acts together. Because forever and ever, New York has had this sort of taffy pull of wanting to do right in the cannabis space, and obviously it's the center of the financial world too. So there's just there are these dualities in cannabis, and I think what happened was this whole program almost got hijacked by politics and an agenda that could have jived very easily with the overall capitalism of cannabis too. But it's sort of like it's cutting its nose off to spite its face.
Yes.
So
it's been challenging to watch. I want to choose my words carefully, not to offend anybody. It's been challenging to watch as an outsider or an observer, because there is this huge pent-up demand for legal cannabis. There are people who have grown such that there's actually a real demand for the cannabis. Like there's growers who need to get it out the door, and there's people willing to start and open and do the thing. But there's only 28
stores open now, and as an attorney in the space, there's just been so many miscalculations of what MRTA stands for and how MRTA is actually implemented into society. So first and foremost, one of the biggest mistakes I think MRTA made was to decriminalize cannabis before introducing a regulatory framework to sell and legalize the commercial aspects of cannabis. So what you saw immediately were proliferations of legacy stores that had always existed, but now they're loud and proud. They're everywhere. Yeah. And so it created this I'd say like almost a public relations disaster, because I don't think that the lawful or regulated marketplace will look like the legacy marketplace. It won't smell like the legacy marketplace. It won't have the same affect on the city itself. But you've turned people against cannabis because it has been so haphazard, almost Wild West in the way that it's come to be. So only 28 stores open, which is insane because this law went into effect 2.5 years ago. So what are we waiting for? And people are sitting on the sidelines. They've invested their entire life savings. We have, we have farmers who are sitting on crops and product, and they can't move it.
It's a little bit like Field of Dreams, grow it and people will buy it. Except there's nobody to. There's
absolutely, and the idea of the conditional marketplace, sort of this, let's jigger the system, let's get this rolling with people who are just as involved, those that were hemp farmers, distressed farmers, etc. And the goal and the intention was so pure and good, but it, of course, is marred with litigation.
Yes.
Because New York is also probably the most litigious state in the U.S. And that
you smile because you're a lawyer, so it's okay.
We said from the get-go that ancillary businesses were going to do well in the cannabis space, and obviously one of them is the law space, because there's just so much ripe for the breakdown and the correction. So I can't even say that it's been a correction in the commercial space. It's really a correction in the legal space that's happening first.
Well, it's to me on the outside, it is super interesting to also watch customers go back and forth and have no idea what's going on. Right?
No
like
idea.
this is such a small bubble of people who understand
Legal.
what this looks like, but customers are out shopping in New York thinking that they're shopping at legal stores.
And they're thinking that they're buying products that are okay.
Right.
Because they're packaged, they're sold, openly and notoriously. That's a legal definition and term. And there's no real understanding that this is like still not the real thing.
Yeah.
We haven't heard, thank goodness, of a lot of, products liability issues or poisonings or any of those things. I mean, certainly in that respect, in the open stores, I mean, there's always a worry about fentanyl and other additives that are in the true legacy black market, if you will, underground. That's always a possibility. But from a person who's in the space to make it better and to make it corrected, if you will, that's a big problem. People don't know what they're buying.
Right. And we've seen it even in the Canadian landscape. And then when they do, they can be disappointed, right? Because it's not the same. You just said yourself, it doesn't have the same vibe as going into a legacy dispensary and that sort of underground feel. It has a very regulated feel in many cases, especially when IDs are being checked. It's like it has a very different... And
sanitized.
Right, sanitized. There you go. It is different. But I went to, there's one in Syracuse, or the one in Syracuse, the dispensary, and it feels great.
Yeah.
And people are happy to be there, and it's huge, and it's like...
That's great.
Yeah.
Long Island, where I hail from, is it's its own sort of strange land because part of what cannabis is and isn't in New York is the zoning and the real estate that's behind it. So essentially, in certain places, there will be tons of stores.
Yeah.
That's not true in Long Island.
Right, there'll be zero?
No,
it's not zero, but it's not
they
a
will
lot.
be so far and few between. It'll be the delivery market that will take hold because everybody opted out, which was their local municipal right.
Yeah, but we've even seen like that. Sometimes it lasts forever.
Yeah.
But also sometimes tax dollars are like, well, we don't need it to go somewhere else.
Yeah, they changed their mind.
Yeah.
Mississauga is an excellent example of that in Canada. That's like a community just on the edge of Toronto.
Well, and to I would say to the credit of the municipalities, their initial sort of first glance at this was, how does this look and what is it actually going to be? And 2.5 years later, they may not have been so far from the mark when it's so chaotic and really strange. So I think they're waiting for things to kind of get into place, and then I think there'll be a domino effect of other municipalities joining in, which is their right. You can opt out and then opt back in, but if you never opted out, you cannot opt out.
Yeah, that's smart. And every state thinks they are unique in doing what they're doing in their approach, but also every state, like especially New York, has like competition on the borders, right? New Jersey is moving, I would say, faster, even though it's a relative term, to their adult use program, Connecticut as well, Vermont as well, and Canada, right on the northern border.
1,000%.
And so it's like you can go as slow and try to get it as perfect as you want, but consumers are going to buy cannabis.
To what end?
Right.
You're missing it. It's right there. It's
Right.
all around you. And you can't get your act together. So it's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. It is, especially, I'm sure it's frustrating in real time as a New Yorker, but it's also frustrating to watch, like, the industry pin their hopes on, like, a vast New York market that'll be, $4 or $5 billion, whatever it is, but also have it be, like, a very
And
slow...
job creation and all of the rest of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there was a conversation I was having last night, can't remember with who, but that's sort of standard issue in Las Vegas. But like thinking about a time down the road, right?
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 years down the road, where you look back on these times like, oh, it was really hard to get going, but now we're at a marketplace or a part in the sector where it's like, now we see people start to close. Like we see the other end of it, right? This proliferation and then like a right sizing. Like, is that a 5-year horizon in your view?
Yeah. So I have so many clients in the space trying to break in. Actually, we're in a license application phase right now in New York for most of the adult use market, including, by the way, registered organizations or our medical market. That's actually opening up and it's getting wider. Very exciting.
Oh.
But the way that the litigations had happened along the way has made a lot of people who've been waiting for this moment say, you know what? I might sit on the sidelines for the first rounds and I might pick up a distressed company instead of being sort of that pioneer.
Yeah.
And I think that they're taking notes from other states where they've seen this sort of
The role.
First to market doesn't always
mean best.
mean best, or that it is an easy position to hold.
Correct.
Either. Yeah.
From any of those perspectives.
I agree.
We've seen now, I think, in the Canadian market, like wave 2 of like retailers who know what they're doing. The other ones are going out of business or in the process of running out their first lease.
Yeah.
But you see better products, better brands, better retailers, better operators overall.
Right.
And like it is this, second wave, if you will. And someone once said to me at the beginning of cannabis, when all these brands were entering the space in Canada, like we have to be in this first wave of brands. And someone said, there's always new microbrews coming up. Like they didn't miss legalization 100-something years ago. Like there is this normal cycle. And I think it'll put a lot of pressure on the first cycle with its delay, but there will be distress.
You can look
companies.
at other industries for that guidance. I mean, certainly like bottled beverages, bottled waters, or all of these brands. It's been around forever, but they keep sort of making it better, more interesting, more diversified, and I think that lends some guidance for the cannabis market.
Yeah.
Products are always being developed. Actually, that's one of the greatest things about coming to MJ Biz is sort of seeing the innovations that are taking place and seeing how this has been around forever.
Right.
But it just keeps getting more interesting and creative.
Yeah.
So that's why I come.
And actually, Krista had some stats yesterday about the people's purchases the first time they're in a store, and then second and third, and there is this hunger for new.
Yeah.
That may be unique to the sector, but also it's that is what that's the most exciting part, at least from
makes
my
sense.
perspective.
And people are getting more comfortable in the space. It's kind of like fine tuning a palette.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited about New York, and not just to go to one of the 28 right now, but like a full-fledged market where you I love the point when we were in other markets, but here in Nevada, but also in Toronto, it's like when people are like, God, there's a dispensary everywhere. I'm like, yeah, there is.
Yeah. And the taboo, that sort of
it starts to go down.
failing away.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a good thing.
At the beginning, people are like, oh, there's dispensaries everywhere. And now you never hear people in Canada talk about it, or some areas of Michigan either. It happens, and then people all see it, and then it just becomes something that is standard issue.
Normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a ways away in New York.
There's some time.
It is. I mean, I live in a small town on Long Island, and I started to think about cannabis again, and many do, juxtaposed to the alcohol and beverage market. And you just look in a small town, how many wine liquor stores are there in a small town? And
tons.
It's tons. But it's just common practice. It's commonplace. 20 years from now, I feel like that will be, you just need a generation to sort of absorb the change.
Yeah. And there's a situation that happens, or a window of time, where also until everybody gets used to operating within the regulations, not just anticipating what the implication of those regulations might be, but actually operating in it. It isn't until people get to the realization that we can create a business and it functions, and that isn't the number one priority, that then things really start to shape out with innovation.
That's been a big part of my job in the last couple of months, is educating the public, because even though MRTA passed 2.5 years ago, right now we're at the stage where we're before community boards that have not opted out, and we're trying to get them comfortable with the concept of having regulated spaces, and they're still against it. And it's kind of like, wait a second, you have legacy market stores here that aren't getting taxes.
Right.
You don't know what's being sold. This is a really good thing for your community. You have to show ID to get in. It's a very good thing. But again, it's hard to change some old school thoughts about what cannabis is and isn't.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming in.
So
first up, because that's hard, the third day of MJ Biz, to come in first in the morning. So thank you so much. It's good to see you as always.
Always.
And we look forward to connecting with you as things unfold in New York.
Yes, and reach out anytime. New York is
Appreciate
an
that.
ever-changing landscape, so what is today may not be tomorrow.
Or even on Monday, things might have wholesale changed. Elizabeth Case, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Pleasure.
We're going to come back with Graydon Wellborn from White Ash Group. In just a moment, he's somewhere around the corner. We'll get him on. Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. I am Jay. You are Krista. This is day 3 that we've been here. I'm just kidding. This is day 3 we've been here at Planet 13, the world's largest dispensary. So we're calling it. They call it that. What you can't see from this camera that I'm looking at is that behind you is a gummy manufacturing kitchen that you can see into. They bottle their cannabis beverages there. We've had a great time looking in while we're talking to our guest. We have a great guest up next, Graydon Welburn. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
You are from the White Ash Group?
Yes.
Give us the 1-minute elevator pitch on White Ash Group, then we'll dive.
White Ash Group is a recruitment, staffing, and executive search firm that focuses specifically and solely on the cannabis industry. And what that means is we do hiring for cannabis companies, whether that's seed to sale, roots to suits, which is just a fancy way of saying anyone touching the plant all the way up to a C-suite executive.
You want to know a fun fact?
Always.
Planet 13. No. Yeah, you're going to get it anyways. Planet 13 said they had 580 employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
In Nevada. Well, not even, just in other places too, but 580 is a big company.
Yeah.
Well, it's the world's biggest dispensary,
I know.
so...
As if I teed that up perfectly. But actually, that's an interesting question. Like, you've seen companies go from startup to grown up.
Yes.
Like, what... That's hard to do. That's some of the biggest pain points in any industry.
Scaling is really, really hard. Yeah. I think in the cannabis industry, we've seen a couple different scenarios where companies scale too fast and ends up kicking them in the butt. And then there's massive layoffs. And then there's bad press and bad public opinion. And then we've seen companies that are, I think you said in the previous chat, not trying to necessarily be first to market and trying to grow at the right scale.
Yeah.
And hiring really out of necessity when they actually strategically need to, not because they want to throw money and people at a problem. Right. They want to find the right person to find solutions for the problem.
Yeah.
Is there a threshold of like number of team members that you usually see where complexity gets built in? Where my question is coming from is when I think about retail environments, you kind of get from 1 to 3 stores, you're okay.
Yeah.
3 to 5 feels quite different. 5 to 10 feels really different, and then 10 or more, you're into a bit of a different ball game, just from a scaling perspective.
That's a good question. I think that one thing I do know is that if you're around 15 people, you need to start considering HR, because if you get beyond that, it's sort of like things get out of hand a little bit, and HR is not a thing that people necessarily, when they're building a company, think, oh, I should get that, because it's effectively a cost center, but it's not. It's a cost saver. It saves you in the long term. But another way to answer your question, it would be, I think that things are a lot different when it's a small, like some of the LPs that we work with in Canada, it's like, there's 40 people there, and it's a very different relationship that we have with them and different type of complexities that they deal with hiring than the companies where it's like 200 people. Right. The speed and the, like, when you're a company of 40 people, the 41st person is still pretty important.
Right.
But when you're a company of 300 people, it's like, depending on the position, they're like, okay, well,
the perception of importance within the internal team that's there.
Like, I find the smaller companies that we work with are so... Actually, I'll backtrack. I find that a lot of the companies that are really successful that we work with really care about culture, so they are a little bit more specific with who they hire, not necessarily in terms of like skills and experience, but are they going to be part of our family for the long run? Because we don't want people coming in and out of our family because it's disruptive. Right.
Is there a trend that you've seen in terms of hiring or skill set that you, over the maybe last 2 years, that wasn't there 2 years ago and now people ask for it? I see it with hiring of retail managers as well as district managers. All of a sudden there is a lot of focus on having extensive retail experience and less of a prioritization on cannabis experience necessarily, depending on which area you're in. But have you seen like a trend like that?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a consistent trend of companies wanting people with cannabis experience, but I think, at least I'm trying to push this is, being open to bringing people from outside of the industry and bringing them in, because, if someone's coming in now, chances are they really want to be here because we're not in a great state currently collectively. So if you want to come in now and you're not currently in the industry, that has to mean that you are probably sacrificing a bit of money and a lot of stability. And that means that you're probably serious that you want to be here, because the people that came in initially that just thought this was going to be fun and games and we're all going to get rich really quick, they're all gone. So the people that are coming in now, I think, they really, really want to like actually be here and try it out and be a part of something that's new and grow. But I would say in terms of other trends, it's still, cannabis experience. It's still regulated environments. That's what our clients are caring the most about. Despite someone, being a, working at a tech company or maybe they were someone working in Best Buy. It's like the chances of them working for an LP or a grower is kind of low. It's more like you'd have to match up where you were. Like Best Buy, go to retail, but it's still, they want regulated industries.
Yeah.
I
believe it.
Yeah.
Because it really is, even as we were sitting with operators who are about to open, like in New Jersey and other places, it's like there's so much emphasis put on getting to day one.
Yeah.
And then like getting from day 1 to day 100 takes a different set of skills, and so much money, energy is like, how are we going to sell it? But the compliance part is like, that's what drives cultivators, that's what drives manufacturers and processors. And no matter what you're manufacturing, processing, or even retail, like the compliance is so heavy in cannabis, and it's a mindset as much as a skill set.
Yeah, and I think because we're all trying to go as fast as we can here, I think there's a lot of, people that are like, well, yeah, that person's great, but I can't hire them because then I'd have to spend 3 weeks teaching them something. And that's kind of where we're at, which is a little bit unfortunate. But, companies want to bring people on, but they're like, it's going to take me away from these 900 things I have to do if I have to like teach them how a regulatory framework works, if they aren't coming from a world where that is a thing.
Yeah.
It makes me kind of frustrated when we see something like that.
Yeah,
I completely understand when you're like head down, really busy, there's a lot going on. But the cost associated with not bringing in the right person is so high.
So high.
Like if you go down a path and they're not the right person, and 6 months later, now you're rehiring.
Yeah, you're losing like hundreds of thousands of dollars if you add up the time, the training, the time it took to find them. That's our whole thing is that, if your hiring process is messed up and takes a long time and gets drawn out and the can gets kicked down the road because you get distracted by other shiny objects, you're losing so much money by just spinning your tires and not being focused and not being strategic enough. Like, your hiring shouldn't take you 4 months, and if it does, that person's probably not going to go with you anyways because someone else is going to pick them up. They don't like to be
strung along for 4 months either.
Yeah.
Hiring is like sales. Like you have to create momentum.
Yes.
Yeah. And when there is momentum, then you can ride the momentum. But when you get that off track, like you reduce the interest from the potential candidate as a business, like you lose a footing in terms of how engaged that person might be. And you set the tone from the moment
for the rest of the relationship. Yeah. You're dating at the start, really.
Yeah. Like, and I think we miss that it's a two-way street sometimes.
Yeah. It's a conversation. I always try to remind our clients and the candidates we work with that it's a two-way street. You want to make sure it's a win-win. You want to, develop the relationship how you wish, start as you wish to proceed,
right.
Like if, put the flag in the ground and this is how it's going to be. And, you can tell the difference. Like when we have candidates interview with, companies that we work with that are very organized and, really personable and understanding, and they sort of get the candidate experience. The candidate is way more likely to take the job, even if it's maybe less money than someone else that's kind of like tossing them around and, giving them feedback after 2 weeks after they interviewed. It's like that you're losing the je ne sais quoi, the fun of the whole pursuit of getting a new job.
Yeah. Looking ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it be great if like everybody just started hiring everybody and it was like we were in the spot, like, but are you expecting in 2024 that companies will come to you and say, look, we're looking for this very specific role. We know we need to add headcount. This is the type of person. And like, are you expecting that? Like, it's not going to be a bonanza, but those ones that are looking are going to be more serious companies like that know exactly what they want.
I think so. I mean, I hope so.
That makes it easier for
Yeah,
you.
that'd be good for us. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's not going to be massive. I don't think there's going to be sort of that massive hire again until there's more consolidation and more market maturity. When, you know, like in Canada, I sort of envision that there's going to be a place where things are more stable and everyone's more profitable, and then therefore everyone is going to be able to hire more consistently and be able to take more chances on who they hire, which will be exciting. But I think the next year, I think that it's going to be probably feel similar to this year, which is, you know, everyone is being very specific and slightly hesitant and slightly trigger shy.
Yeah.
And because it feels like everyone, anything could tip the scale and they don't want to hire
Right.
the wrong person. So
Right.
that is part of the reason they bring us on, because it's just another layer of qualification.
And you can help create momentum.
Yes. Yeah.
Like
that's
you
what we
can
do.
keep the momentum
Yeah.
going, even if somebody is kind of bogged down with other things,
Totally.
as long as everybody's on the same
Well, yeah,
page.
that's the whole thing, is we take care of everything. Of course, they need to be involved, but we sort of shepherd the process along the way, because it's a weird processing things, because it's convoluted and it's, you know, the hiring manager's going on vacation. Well, okay, well now that it sort of like changes our momentum, you know. So it's like, how do we coax things along in a natural and not
a real
forced
matchmaker.
way? Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Great. And I appreciate you taking time this early in the morning and the third day of
No,
MJ Biz.
thank you.
And we're in Las Vegas. Like, all those things added more complexity to getting here early, but you were here and I appreciate it.
Happy
And
to
thank
be
you for
here.
sharing your thoughts. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This has
and
been
everybody
great.
should follow Graydon on LinkedIn, because he's been posting fire. Like, really good thoughts about where
you.
the industry is, where hiring is, sort of mindset, all of those things. So thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Jay.
You
Thanks,
got
Krista.
it. He's Graydon Wellborn. We are coming back with Vince Ning from Nabis. We'll be right back from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. This is Cultivated Live. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. I'm Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. We are in our third day from here at Planet 13 in Las Vegas. We are here with Vince Ning from
Yes.
Nabis.
Hey.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Give us the lowdown on Nabis, then we're going to dive in.
Cool. Nabis, we are one of the largest cannabis distributors in the industry. I started this business 6 years, almost 7 years ago now, back in California. And we've grown to be the largest distributor by volume. We distribute about $500 million worth of products a year. It consists of about 22% of California's market, and that's comprised of on the supplier side over 300 brands, and on the retail side we distribute to about almost 100% of retailers in the state. Most recently we actually just started working in New York. And one of our partners was actually just out there.
Perfect.
Yeah, just coincidentally, he was checking out the Planet 13
That's
retail,
funny.
experience and seeing what he could bring back to New York, I guess. But it's been a great journey, and now sort of the focus of the company is to build the national distribution infrastructure for the cannabis industry. You can think of it as like the Amtrak for cannabis. It's not the coolest or sexiest thing, but someone needs to build the rail system for cannabis products.
What were you doing before? Is it logistics? Is that even what were you doing before?
I was not in logistics, but I was an engineer, like a software engineer.
Okay.
So much of this, I take from a standpoint of an engineering mindset. At the end of the day, it's one big complex math problem. And prior to this, I had a company called Scaffold that I ended up selling to Amazon. That was not a logistics company; it was a developer tools company. But that was like my first foray into the startup world, and I loved it and wanted to keep going and doing it. Prior to that, I just worked at Microsoft as a run-of-the-mill software engineer up in Seattle. So saw that market come live back then. It was one of the first markets with Colorado. I've always just been like a consumer and excited about the industry. And when I was in California doing my last company, California legalized. So I was like, okay, this thing is following me or I'm following it. And we just get in the industry.
Everybody should thank you.
Yeah.
You should spend more time in New York so they can move it faster.
Right.
Are there advantages of being in a market from the get-go? Like thinking about New York, like they have very little infrastructure, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Like there are growers and products, but there's also only like 20 retailers. Like not all the trappings of a full industry are in place yet. Is there advantages to take what you've learned in California and bring it to New York?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, there's always this sort of general business principle of first mover advantage, but it doesn't actually, I'm trying to think in my experience, sometimes it actually works in your favor to be number two.
Yeah,
And then
we were just talking about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like wait till number one falls and then you can take the crown. Distribution's a little bit different in that, again, using the sort of like train track analogy, a lot of brands or manufacturers end up, because there's no FedEx for the industry, they end up building their own trucking and warehousing solutions. And once you go down that path, it's like a slippery slope. You like, maybe I can justify buying one more truck before you have like 20 trucks.
Right.
And then when an actual third-party distributor comes in who's an expert at it, tries to sell that brand or manufacturer on distribution services or fulfillment services, they're just like, I have my own already. But it's not obviously like more scalable. It's just that there's a sunk cost fallacy. And so for us, all that is to say is it's important to be in the market early to ensure that no one goes down that path
Their own
of
path,
like building each their own rail system, which is really inefficient for any supply chain or frankly the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about what the footprint looks like? Like
Yeah.
California's a massive state. It's
Massive
very
state.
difficult to get around in normal terms,
Yeah.
but even just in terms of distributing
Sure.
sort of regulated product. Like talk about sort of what the footprint looks like for you and the team.
Yeah, lots of ways to describe this, and some vanity metrics, some important ones. I mentioned earlier we distribute about $500 million worth of products by wholesale value per year, and California's market is about $2 to $2.5 billion in wholesale value, so it's about $4 to $5 billion in retail. Otherwise, we have distribution infrastructure that spans the whole state. So we have 3 warehouses, one central hub in Woodlake, California, which is really close by Fresno in Central California. And then we have spokes, basically just cross-dock warehouses that don't store inventory. They're more like layover hubs in Oakland and LA to service those major hubs. And so the combined total square footage is 150,000 square feet. We have 300 people on the team, and everyone comprised of software engineers, operations managers, delivery drivers, warehouse workers, and corporate staff, marketing and sales and marketing. Yeah.
What is something that is showing up in the business today that when you were originally thinking about starting the business, you didn't anticipate would be something that people were either focused on, like it could be like customers are asking for?
Yeah. I mean, when we started the business, contrary to my background in tech, I actually started doing deliveries myself just, for the first 9 months of the business. And no one cared how fancy your tech was. People just wanted to get their products from point A to point B. And that's what we kind of built everything around, just fulfillment. You think it was like an Uber or a DoorDash for wholesale deliveries. And as these brands sort of grew up, there were a lot of things that actually came into the fold that our platform encapsulates today that we didn't think we would. We have a wholesale marketplace now, kind of like an Alibaba style platform. We have a factoring service, so we provide short-term financing loans for brands on a transactional basis, on a transaction by transaction basis. We provide data analytics services. We have a whole credit scoring system that's probably one of the most robust in the industry. Just given we handle not just product fulfillment, but we also handle payment collections too. So we understand the sort of credit worthiness of retailers across the portfolio we distribute to. And so we turn that into like a 1 through 5 rating system to make it really easy for brands to understand directionally at least how to sell and how many, what sort of payment terms to give.
Talk a little bit about that, because everybody knows that is a problem in California specifically. Like, how does that, part of it is like risk assessment, like that you're talking about, but part of it is like there's some structural challenges in the California market. How do you handle that? A pretty big footprint that you have and delivering to all those places and all the wholesaling. Like, what does that look like as you factor it into your business?
Yeah, I mean, every brand matters. With 300 brands, it's everyone. Our platform, I think, to take a step back, it's important to know that a big nuance between our company and another full suite distributor, if you will, is that we don't buy and sell products as a traditional distributor might. We're more like a FedEx platform. We're like a fulfillment logistics platform.
So less risk on your part.
Less risk, but also what it gives, the advantage it gives the brands is that it allows them to control their own narrative. It allows them to control who they sell to, how they sell to, what sort of discounts, and we sort of get out of the way as opposed to other third-party distributors. They're sort of in the middle of everything and
navigating
everything.
relationships.
Was that intentional on your part?
Yeah. We honestly wanted to democratize the cannabis space, and when we got into the industry, it's still fairly unclear which brands are going to win, on the broader landscape nationally. A lot have shown early signs of success, but ultimately, for one reason or another, fizzled out pretty quickly. I think it also goes to show that consumer trends can shift pretty quickly too. You came from men's fashion. I think cannabis is no different than that, if not worse, in terms of
we were
people
talking,
wanting the new.
We were talking yesterday about the lifespan of a SKU in California, and it's like somewhere between 3 and 4 months. And you compare that to other markets, and it looks really different, but. 3 or 4 months, that's when the point that it enters into a retail environment, and then it is sold down and out. And another fun fact is that there are 30% of SKUs in cannabis stores right now, or about 30%, have 5 items or less.
Got it. Yeah.
So you can imagine that there is always this movement of either sellout or like lingering SKUs, and you would see that in your data, but from the other side.
Yeah, exactly. I think SKUs turn over really quickly. When we first few years, our top 10 brands every quarter would be totally different from the last. And so
repeatability.
No repeatability. Sometimes they would show back up later in the year, but it's just, it's a consistency thing for a brand to be able to build long-term loyalty from consumers, and it's been, I mean, we wanted to give everyone a fair shot at getting to market essentially. So instead of throttling it, we wanted to enable it.
Yeah, I just think when an industry is developing, like in New York, and we talk to people in New York talking about the industry and how it's challenging because there's not real scale yet and all that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think regulators certainly aren't thinking about it, but like all the parts of the industry that come along next, like all the parts of the supply chain that just evolve and innovate, and like it is a robust industry. Like, thinking about California, a robust industry with every movement along the way. Like people like you, like filling the gaps that need to be filled. And I just think it's not thought of that way from like people putting together markets.
I mean, I think when people put it together, there's always different hats that people put on. I think first everyone puts on a policy hat, and gets really into it from a social equity standpoint, gets really into it from like a tax standpoint or like, ethics standpoint. And I think it's important. But for instance, New York, I think it took them a long time to get the market rolling. Frankly, a lot of them there are a lot of experts in the room who put a lot of thought and time into actually, in my opinion, building one of the most like robust frameworks for cannabis market to exist. But, I think
except for the actual market.
Except for the market. I think that's the thing. And to their credit lately, I think they've been making a lot of more quick adjustments to getting the market rolling. Like earlier this Monday, the CCB just rolled out 460 or so new, or just released 460 or so card licenses on the retail side of things. So
you have their addresses, right?
Yeah, supposedly. Supposedly it's listed publicly. But yeah, I mean, I think getting the market rolling, it is very much like a chicken and the egg problem. To your point, supply chain is as strong as the weakest link. It's like a physics problem where an object is that way too. And so for the New York market, you can't just have brands, and you just can't just have retailers. You need both at the same time. Right now, the retail tier is just becoming this like, choke point for the entire supply chain. There's so many brands that are coming to market, relatively speaking, and everyone's just excited for the market to get going. And I think for us, like, we just applied for distribution license, and we're excited to hopefully be one of the first few in the New York market to do third-party distribution. But it's a much needed service in New York too, and you can't, it's by the same logic, you can't have both brands and retailers without the logistics side, because they need to transact at scale.
Yeah, and it's a big state too.
Yeah. To get from Buffalo to the other end of Long Island takes about like 12 hours. So.
Yes, we do that drive sometimes. I know that drive. Vince, I really appreciate you taking the time as part of the show, of course, but also to share sort of the backstory and insight from the company and sort of how it's going. So thanks for making time while we're here at Planet 13, which it's a pretty good place to do interviews.
Yeah,
honestly.
I was going to say, I've not done one at a dispensary before, and this is great.
No, it's really
unique.
If you have to do one, this is the one to do it in. They've been so gracious with their space and time. So
it's cool. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
He is Vince Ning from Nabis. We will be right back with Justin Johnson talking about chill steel pipes. We'll be right back from Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. Thanks.
Cool.
Welcome back to Planet 13. I am Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. This is Cultivated Live, day 3 from Las Vegas. It is Friday morning, so anytime we get someone early Friday morning, we are pleased. Third day of a show, and we are joined by Justin Johnson. Thanks for making time.
I hurried out of the shower for you.
I really appreciate that. Most people scurry out of bed and like barely get here, but you were actually here and on time. Tell us about, before we even get into chill steel pipes, give us a little bit of your background in the industry, because it's pretty great.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I started my career in advertising, worked in tech. I was really obsessed with a platform called producthunt.com, where people shared and discovered cool new apps.
Yeah.
And when I, figured how I wanted to enter the cannabis industry, I really felt like I didn't want to be a publisher, but I wanted to create a platform that kind of operated in the same way. And I launched a website called budsfeed.com. And BudsFeed is Product Hunt for weed. So it's a place where anybody can sign up. I encourage entrepreneurs and enthusiasts to come share the latest and greatest gadgets, strains, cultivation equipment, whatever it is. We have 50 plus categories, and that's kind of how I started. And people kind of got to know me a little bit, I guess.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so fast forward.
You
also have products on shelves.
Yeah, for sure. So I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be making money doing branded content and running banner ads, which kind of was the plan. And what I realized is a lot of founders started coming to me and asking me for help, either with marketing, but also more like back of house stuff, like operation stuff. And a gentleman by the name of Richard Gonzalez hit me up through his sister, who I had worked with 10 years and prior to that. He said, "Hey, I have a really amazing idea for a bong." He happened to be a manufacturer of vacuum insulated water vessels, one of the largest brands in the world.
What is that?
Like a Yeti cup. Or
okay.
His brand was a brand called Monohydration. It was at all the Walmarts, the Costco's, etc. He did all the white label branding for Walmart, and he's like, I basically want to create a bong that keeps your ice water cold for 12 hours. And I said, that's a brilliant idea. I saw the pictures. It was beautiful. And I told him, if he brings it to life, I'll be his CMO, and I'll help him raise however much capital we need to manufacture it, because it's not a cheap endeavor for sure.
No. And then you launched it.
We did.
And they
launched
exist.
it. Yeah, we launched it in April 2021. Yeah, crazy fanfare, 2021. It went wild. Continued a lot of momentum into 2022, and here we are. We're almost at the end of 2023. So it's been a little over two and a half years basically at this point.
And people do like them. It's because of because they look cool. They function
good.
cool.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it on the market.
No. So when we created it, we're like, oh yeah, cool, like Yeti Ice Bong, and the silhouette is. I get so many compliments on it, and it's kind of funny. It's the manufacturing process and how you can actually, like, what you can do with the machinery. Indestructible, right? It's stainless steel.
So two things that strike me, and we've talked about this, but one is that it's not glass.
It's
like
not
if you
glass.
if you drop it, it's not gonna smash on your floor.
Right.
We've
right.
all had that happen in some capacity,
multiple times.
But also the cool look, the cold water, and the not breakable.
Yeah, and then it's got a ceramic interior, and you can take the neck off from the base, easily wipe it out with an alcohol wipe, so it's really easy to clean as well. And the modularity allows for mix and matching, so you can incorporate new neck pieces onto it. So if you have a black chill, you can basically buy a leopard neck piece or a snake skin or a tie-dye, and you can basically get a new bong or a new look. And accessorize it. We have different down stems, different bowl pieces, so it's kind of a build-a-bong.
Oh,
Build-a-bong.
Yeah, I like
That's
that.
a campaign.
It is. Like the big lineups for Build-A-Bear. It's like Build-A-Bong.
Yeah, I get a cease and desist.
Build is like trademarked.
Yeah.
I like it.
Little pop-ups on university campuses.
Yeah, it's coming. My partner was a retail manager for a long time, and then he got into manufacturing because he knew how to get products basically into Walmart and stuff like that. And we always joked that like one day, Bed Bath & Beyond, RIP, I think Overstock is now Bed Bath & Beyond. Bed Bath & Beyond would actually have a Beyond section. I still believe that today. And we work with a lot of like-minded people who believe the same. We work with Doreen Sullivan at My Bud Vase, who has a whole other bong that's kind of revolutionary. She's like one of the OGs, females in cannabis. And there's a lot of us that believe like these modern accessories really will live in a true retail experience.
Yeah, there's a store in Canada called Indigo Books, and they have actually a cannabis accessory section.
Nice.
Yeah, and it shows
It's
up
like
in
pretty
their
staid blue chip company. It's
in
like-
their like in their urban environments. They have a section in the store, and there is a section on their website.
That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
in the United States, you got Urban Outfitters. They're carrying Sackville, they're carrying Joint Locker,
Yeah.
Sesh Cases, Tulip, and I look up to all those brands. I'm hoping one day I can kind of grace those shelves. Bongs.
Well, now that you've been on our show, it's much more likely to happen.
It is. I mean,
Yes,
it's
Heard it
why
here
I'm here.
first.
It's why I'm here. But it'll get there. Bongs are the dirty word in the accessories business. Pipes, rolling papers, grinders, much easier in terms of getting into retail, importing, distribution. Bongs are something that the government has deemed only for cannabis, only for marijuana specifically, and so it's been a bit demonized in a weird way. Obviously, you know the story about Tommy Chong, Jason, these guys going to prison during Operation Pipe Dream. Thank God we're not
There
anymore.
Yeah.
But it's still a bit more challenging than the other accessories.
When you are walking the trade show floor,
Yeah.
here but elsewhere as well, like you created a really cool product, super innovative. Like, are there other people doing innovative things that you're like, oh, that is pretty cool too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a geek.
You could badmouth other people too if you want.
No, that's why BuzzFeed started, because I geek out on this stuff and I love seeing people innovate. And I mean, all the way up to like this extraction equipment that used to be used for like olive oil or whatever is now what we're using to make vape carts. Like that's where I really was really intrigued early on. And then I think through the evolution of the site, I became more interested in the personal accessories. But yeah, there's tons of great stuff. Like I work with another bong brand called Prism Water Pipes, and they make a modular glass build bong. And so we made adapters that allow me to incorporate a percolator into our bong, right? A glass percolator or a glass neck piece for people who like to see their smoke. So they're doing great stuff. And I walk through and, I have there's a lot of trash.
Yeah.
And, MJ Biz is a little bit better. They're a bit higher caliber in terms of what they allow, because it's got to be really truly cannabis related. They're not here selling other substances.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I see it every day, and it makes me really happy, because my belief is that there's a lot of big distributors out there that are trying to kind of gather up all these companies and make a big parent company that sells these things. But I don't think anything can replace the garage economy, right? Great things are being made in people's garages and basements every single day, and there's millions of those people.
Well, it's Etsy.
Right.
Yeah.
Etsy is outside of cannabis. I mean, well, you can find some really great, cool
Cannabis?
things on Etsy.
Oh yeah, I've tried. I've been kicked off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Etsy doesn't like the bongs.
They don't like the word bong.
Yeah, well, I don't. I call it a
Water pipe.
double wall vacuum insulated smoking apparatus. But
That sounds like, I know it's not, but that sounds like scuba, right? Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. That's like an acronym.
Nobody's searching for that though.
Right,
so the SEO is not great.
That's a tough
Not yet.
look.
Not yet.
But yeah, no, I mean it's really cool. I actually was next to these guys. It's called Puka, I believe is the name of the brand. They come from the golf industry. Beautiful manufacturing. It's a pipe with an inset, like pre-filled little borosilicate cartridge, and you can slide it in. It's completely airproof, or airtight, so you don't smell it. You know what I'm saying? And then they made a bowl piece that's magnetic, and it easily pulls off.
Snap. It's like,
I put 2 bongs in their booth. They got the bowl piece in my bongs now. So I love collabing with these people, and I walk up to them and I share my card for BuzzFeed, and I say, hey, like,
Put it
get
on
some
here.
free game.
Yeah.
Sign up, share it on the site, expose it to my community. Maybe sell a few units, but at the very least, like, you start to get a little bit of visibility, build some backlinks, and long term, my goal is like, hopefully we can do something more together, right?
Yeah. Justin, I appreciate you making time this early on a Friday morning
For sure.
to talk about bongs.
Yeah.
Even if the world doesn't want you to talk about bongs or mention it,
I'm doing
glad you are. You're going to do it anyway. That's what I know about you. I appreciate the time. Thank you for making the time and for the work that you're doing. And it does look really cool. So we'll put a link up when we post this video afterwards to how to find you, but how to get a look at the Build-A-Bong as well.
For sure. Chill.store.
Chill.store?
At Getting Chill.
Really?
Yeah.
I like it.
I had to get a .store. The .com for
all
the
good.
chill.com domain,
expensive.
I think it was like $1 million.
Yeah. Someday.
Yeah.
Goal, hashtag
I actually
goals.
know who bought it. He's a pretty cool guy, so we don't. He's
pretty chill?
No beef. Yeah,
He's pretty chill. He actually changed his name to chill.com. That's the thing.
Yeah. Got the trademark.
I love it. We're here at Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. We'll be right back with George from Dynavap.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be right back. Thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys.
We are back at Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. I am Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. We are here with George Brewa. We are going to talk about Dynavap. You're going to do a little bit show and tell. What do you want to do first? Tell us about yourself first.
Okay. So thanks for having me, Jay, Krista.
Pleasure.
This is fantastic. Been having a pretty interesting adventure here in Vegas with MJ Biz. And so about myself, I'm a person that likes to solve problems and to create things. And I found my entry point to combine these attributes into something that could provide me the resources necessary to have a fun life adventure, okay, in the cannabis industry.
That's a pretty good backstory.
Right.
But you are also I don't know what the right word is, but like a Twitch personality.
I don't know
How's
if
that
I'd go
sound?
that far. I just started doing initially back in 2020 on my way back from an interesting adventure to Europe, where I flew to Europe for Spanibus. I don't know if you've ever been.
Yeah.
Okay. Landed there on Wednesday. We were about to start setting up our show for Spanibus on Thursday, and found out a few hours after I arrived, oh yeah, Spanibus has just been canceled. Okay. And then a few hours later, at like 2 o'clock in the morning local time, I was sitting at a cannabis club and making my way back to the Airbnb, and my phone starts blowing up. Oh yeah, Trump just banned travel from Europe. I'm like, okay, I better
like, "But
buy
I'm in
tickets
Europe."
right now, because if I wait until morning, there's not going to be any flights left. So ended up not even having an opportunity to get any sleep. Made a 44-hour round trip from Chicago to Barcelona and back. And it's on my way back that it's like, I need to stay connected. This is my opportunity to kind of step up my game. So I started streaming on Instagram, and that evolved over the course of a year or two. I kind of made it a point to, I'm going to do this every single week because I want to be comfortable on camera. I want to be able to represent the brand, the product, and be able to interface with people in a way that just works and flows. And the only way to be good at anything is you just have to do it.
You need reps.
Reps, all the reps. What we talk about in hockey.
You just do, right? Yeah. Whether you're talking about working out or you're talking about creating, you have to be able to do what you care about regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, it's a lot of this, like showing product, showing how it's working.
It is,
the
and
science and engineering behind it.
Absolutely, and interfacing with the community and the customers. And I think it creates a really interesting format when you force yourself to be in a live situation. So you have to think on the fly. It's a lot easier, not that it's easy per se, to do recorded video, which can be edited, because I also have done a fair amount of that from the beginning, because I wanted to make sure that the product was represented accurately, because just because of the way I'm wired, accuracy matters to me. And we put a lot of details into the product that we make because we want it to be something that, whether you realize it or not, it's the details in the product that help it be what it's supposed to be. The general shape has one thing. The fact that it works, yeah, that's great. But having the finish just right, having the dimensions just right, having the balance of the product so it just sits
right.
and it'll just kind of hang on your fingers, at a nice little place,
Heft,
so that
like a pen.
it just becomes a part of your life that you don't have to really think about it. It just fits in.
And what do you have in your hand? Tell us about
So
this.
the one I've got in my hand is our newest product that we just released about a month and a half ago. We call it the Woodwind because it's made from wood. Nice solid piece of hardwood, right? And it's kind of a throwback to one of the first devices that we made, and I think one of the more important ones that we made in the beginning of our kind of path. Because our first product was mostly glass with our little cap. And our little cap is kind of the key to the Dynaverse, right? Because this silly little thing is a multifunction tool with a built-in thermostat so that it allows whoever has one of these devices to be able to use any sort of heat that they have available and make it work. But having it glass, well, it's nice and clean, but it doesn't look very nice and it breaks. So we ventured off into wood because it's also nice looking, feels nice in the hand. It doesn't get hot. And because we're trying to figure out how to make the cap work with the wood and glass, like, okay, how are we going to do this? Well, why don't we make the oven out of titanium, and why don't we connect it to the wood with just a couple O-rings, so you can just push them together and you reduce the heat transfer. And that means I could have a different kind of stem. I could have a different piece of wood. I could make it out of metal. I could make it out of a broad range of different things, and all my pieces just come right apart, and I can make a little kit. Now we got this modular vaporizer, or we also like to call them a thermal extraction device, because I think the term vaporizer has really been convoluted with all the nicotine vapes and so many other things that are called vapes. This is a device that allows you to bake your flowers instead of burning them. It's not an e-liquid thing. It doesn't have batteries. It doesn't have an atomizer. It doesn't require oil, although it can use it. It's a multifunction device that allows you to consume the product of your choice kind of on your terms, simply and easily.
And it feels good and looks good.
Yeah, it's got a real nice lightweight feel to it. And here, check it out.
And what's the other thing hiding behind the
So
hat?
this is one of the ways that we can heat that.
I see.
So I can.
It does feel
kind
nice. I'm going to take it apart.
The pieces
absolutely.
come
Take it
so
apart.
nicely also.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to break it. Oh, that's great.
So this little product,
You got another one in your hand. You should have
Yeah,
them in all your
well.
pockets.
we kind of make them, so I've got plenty of them, right? So I can drop this in here like this, push a little button, and one of the key things with the way that our product works is the thermostat's built into the device, but you are the control. And if you listen, you can hear it's going to click when it's ready, and that's kind of our signature thing. Okay,
There you
so
go.
now I know that my oven's up to temperature. I can take a couple puffs. I can hold it in here like this, and it'll stay hot for anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds, but not very long. And then it cools down quickly. It'll click again to reset, so we know that it's not cool to the touch, but not hot enough to burn you. So you can put it away, or you can reheat for the next round.
That's smart.
And just
I like it.
That's a
simple and
cool
sleek,
little-
right?
Yeah.
When you are talking to your words, sort of talking to the people that are using this, right? Your community of
Right.
interested parties. Like, are they? Like, you're obviously teaching them, but obviously, and they appreciate it. But are they? Are they always pushing you on the product side too? Like, could you do this? Is this possible?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's really fun about this whole situation is the direct interface with the community helps me as what I'd like to say is, one of the people on the creative team. It helps me better understand what the community of people that we as a company are serving, helps me better understand what they're looking for. Okay, because in the end, what is the purpose of a company? Well, a company exists, in my opinion, to serve its customers. And when you lose sight of the fact that your purpose for existence is to serve your customers, you're going to have problems, right? Because why else does a company exist?
Right. It's a good lesson for retailers too. But you also are figuratively have sight on your customers because they're talking to you, but you're also literally in front of them. Like that's a pretty direct connection, which when Krista talks about sort of bringing that to retail, like that is what gets people to come back for the second time, or to be more engaged with the brand, or to pass through the 4 dispensaries that they see to get to yours, or to go past the other sort of products that might be similar to yours
Sure.
to come to yours.
And I think it's an important thing because the way that I feel that a lot of humans are wired is we're social creatures, right? And it's one thing to be looking at buying, using a product. It's a whole nother dimension when you can associate that product with a person or the team or the group of people and or a brand. And so I think it's really important for a brand to be relevant, to have a face that people can associate with it, to have kind of that feel that's not just the product, it's the people behind the product that are putting their effort in making sure that the product is and does what it's supposed to do and completes the picture.
Yeah, it's not nameless, faceless.
Yeah, exactly.
It's named
we have
with
enough
face.
of that in our world as it is.
Yeah.
And it helps to provide a little bit more confidence, I think, with the customer when they can associate that, there's some actual real people behind this. It's not just made in some nameless factory, shipped overseas, and run through 4 different lines of distribution until it finally gets to me.
Right.
And which is another thing I think is really worth mentioning here, Jay, is we took a very different approach when it came to bringing our product to market. And that is from the initial drawing table, right? Concepts, that sort of thing. I did some of that initial work myself, and I did not want to take the product to some factory somewhere else, teach them how to make it, have them make my order, and then just keep on making them and then flood the market. So we just started as a company making them in our shop and reinvesting when people would buy our product, buying more equipment, hiring more people, learning how to do it. And this empowered what I would refer to as a rapid-paced iterative process that allowed us to refine our product much, much faster because we were able to make small incremental changes in those early days almost daily. That, oh, geez, we got a couple people are saying we should change this, or this is fitting too tight, or it's too loose. Okay, well, let's adjust our own groove depth a little bit and make sure that it feels better and establish that standard. So taught us a whole lot about that process.
It reminds me of the conversation we had, I think, the first day we were here, with someone was figuring out a new way to actually pack their pre-rolls.
Sure.
Like it was an iterative process that you could only do in front of you, right? Sending those directions back and forth, and then once it's set. But then I actually just noticed, this is not about that, but the cap on this is where your logo is on your shirt.
Exactly.
Did you notice? Yeah, I liked it.
And there's more fun things, when it comes to the cap. So not only does it click when your oven is ready, right? So you can just bake your cookies instead of burning them. Okay, but it protects them from the flames. So I can use a source of energy that's not exactly the cleanest. Okay, say a Bic lighter or even a candle. I'm just heating the outside of this metal cap.
You're not actually doing the burning.
And once it clicks, I'm out of that flame. So I'm not drawing any of the byproducts from whatever my heat source is through my system. So it keeps it all nice and clean. And then the best part, at least I think, is when it's done, you take it off and you use what we call the digger outer to just
That's what I'd call it.
Okay.
That's the
Because
digger outer.
it's already in your hands.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just love the fact that when I'm doing this, it's so ergonomic and intuitive
Right.
that process is done, and now I can just reload it either like a one-hitter, or if you just touch the end of the oven, the extraction chamber with your finger, you notice it's kind of serrated. So it's really easy to actually roll between your fingers on a bud like this and just grind right into the chamber.
Oh, wow.
So you don't even have to have a grinder.
What will George think of next?
I don't know.
George, I really want to appreciate, I do appreciate the work you do and the effort and passion in which you do it, but also the approach about product knowledge and sharing with your direct audience, because I think exactly what you're saying is often missed in the industry. Like, we're going to create this product, we're going to get it out to flood the market, but then the consumers actually have no deep connection to it either, because the people who are putting it out don't have a deep connection to it.
No, and it's further complicated, I think, with our product here in this regard, because our product, I think, fits in a category somewhat by itself. So the burden of educating the consumer is very squarely on our shoulders.
Right.
Because if I hadn't had an opportunity to kind of just explain through some of these things to you, it's just a fancy one-hitter.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what we think. It's what we're familiar with. Who would think that you could actually make a fully functional, battery-free vaporizer thermal extraction device with this kind of form factor that weighs about 10 grams, right? And is built to last. I mean, really built to last. I think with just a little bit of care, a product like this, it's generational. And it's another thing that just brings me a lot of joy to think that we're a company, we're making products that you should be able to pass down to future generations, and they should still be nearly, if not fully functional as the day that they were purchased.
There aren't many products like that anymore.
No, there aren't.
Yeah.
And
even a car is not that.
yeah, it just doesn't, things don't last that long. And really, what's going to break on here? If you really abuse this cap, you'll break it. But if you're nice to it, we've had customers that have had caps in daily use multiple times a day for over 5-6 years.
Yeah.
I mean, tens of thousands of cycles these caps are capable of clicking at the right temperature. Then you get the O-rings. If you wear them out, well, they cost a few pennies. You can replace them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it.
I like it. I like it, George. We have to say goodbye to you, even though I don't want
good.
to. But I'll see you on Twitch. But I really do appreciate you stopping by, because I was saying to everybody, up until 10 o'clock, I'm going to say it, it's early to be here on a Friday in Las Vegas. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank
and
you,
for
Jay.
sharing
Thank you,
your morning
Krista.
with us. We are live at Planet 13 in Las Vegas. This is Cultivated Live. He is George Brewa from Dynavap, and thank you so much for sharing. And we'll be right back with Kenny Petticord from idscan.net. I'm saying it out loud, so
Yeah, it was
hopefully,
like
he'll
you
just
just
come, hopefully he'll
really
just come running.
escalated.
We'll be right back from Planet 13.
Perfect.
Welcome back to Cultivated Live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I'm Jay. She is Krista. You are Kenny.
I am Kenny.
We're going to talk about ID Scan. Tell us about ID Scan first, and then we'll dive into sort of how it's used in the cannabis industry and all that jazz.
Okay, great. ID Scan is a premier digital age ID verification tool. So basically using technology to confirm that a government-issued ID is legitimate, and obviously that serves a strong purpose in the age-restricted verticals as well.
Yes, it does. I'm from Massachusetts, and
So you know all about the CCC.
checking into dispensaries in Massachusetts is like
Checking into dispensaries in Nevada. They're the only two that have the that really high level of security out of the states.
Is that
currently.
real? Is that right?
That's 100% true.
Wow. It seems more burdensome in Massachusetts. Not your thing, but actually the regulations and how you get into a dispensary.
Right. Well, typically a state that has very, let's call them robust age and ID verification standards
Yeah.
are also going to have standards of security
Yes.
and legalities and all the other niches also, which if you add them all together, it can get, can get a.
Gets dense very quickly.
Oh, so there's like queue issues in
No,
this?
no, I don't mean. I think she just means like it's complicated for a retailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen queues when I go by in Natick, Massachusetts, but talk about the impetus to do this. Like, what were you doing before? What was the application of the technology before?
Yeah, thank you. I was selling ID scan technology. I'm from Las Vegas, so I was selling into the gaming vertical. We're also the vendor of choice for pretty much all of the gaming technology companies, Konami, Every, Scientific Games, Aristocrat, et cetera, et cetera. I had sold into Planet 13, Shango, Reef, Hardin, the warehouse-style dispensaries in Las Vegas, if you will. And Nevada, coined as Sin City, I think there's a misconception that it's willy-nilly. That's absolutely the opposite. What it means is if you're not hurting anyone but yourself, you're probably going to be allowed to do it, but we're going to regulate and tax the heck out of it.
Yes.
So the governor at the time said, I do not want an underage tourist coming to Las Vegas and purchasing at a licensed dispensary. How do I make sure that doesn't happen? And all of these dispensaries, like Planet 13 and others, said, well, you need to use ID Scan. That turned into us being the only government-approved vendor in the space, which also led to point-of-sale integrations, custom developments, things like that. And organically, we've really found our niche in this vertical.
It's a good vertical
I love it.
for this type of technology. Yeah.
I love it for, aside from compliance and the fact that it's, an age-restricted vertical, I feel passionate about it, from, medical benefits, things like that, gateways to all the plant-based medicines.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've really found my purpose for sure.
Yeah. Krista, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because it is something that is fairly unique to cannabis, is that before the customer comes in and buys the thing that they're there to buy, you actually know they're there. And I know that opens up complications in maybe the operation. It's not like buying something normally, but also you have the great advantage of actually sometimes knowing that they've been there before, maybe even attached to actual purchasing habits. Like, what is opportunities or challenges that offer for a retail operator especially?
Well, you actually can start an interaction with a customer before they ever get onto the sales floor. And often in the ID process, or like as somebody is going through that check-in, it offers this opportunity to have a very casual conversation with the customer that is like low barrier to entry while we're facilitating like logistical regulated requirements. And it's in that moment how quick and smooth that process is will actually set the transaction pace as well. So if it feels clunky there, the customer anticipates clunkiness,
Right.
even if there isn't, and the perception is that there is. So it's actually really important. I don't think we spend enough time focused on what the experience is like in the age gate area to create and reduce the amount of clunkiness there. User experience is efficient, and that you can actually start to have conversations with the customer about things outside of like ID checking, like loyalty programs, what's going on in store, are there new products, early before the customer even gets on the sales floor.
And how do you, when you're talking to clients? Like how are they thinking about it? Like obviously they're thinking about it from a compliance perspective, but are there clients that are actually using this moment in time in interesting
100%.
ways?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is we're still in a relatively brand new vertical, so things are, as you know, changing
Dynamic.
rapidly. For example, when I first came to the space, the reason that we've had the success we've had is that everyone is using digital ID scanning typically from the point of sale vendor. And for the most part, people thought that an ID scan equals an ID validation, and it couldn't be further from the truth. So there was constant populating of fake IDs. So from there, the industry eventually learned when the sheriff comes in, and they all populate as real. Okay, the industry got trained on the idea that the digital scanning is a good thing, and we were able to come in behind and go, we can actually verify that. There's PII regulations that are applied. You mentioned Massachusetts. You have the requirement to validate that ID, but you have to dump it.
Right.
And then, so we had to do custom developments from there. And then finally we get to where we are now, which is like, let's take that PII and integrate it. The fact is about 2 to 5% of the customers at retail brick and mortar are failing our authentication, which means we are serving minors at a fairly alarming rate. Mm-hmm. And that is also even less secure in the online ordering for BOPUS and delivery. So what the retailers want is to have all these tools integrated. We want to validate that ID, but we also want to know, oh, Jay, you're not here to shop. You're actually here to pick up your order that you have already called in to expedite those lines, things like that. So the fact is we are a visitor management database, and that leads us to so many integration opportunities. And that's kind of where we're at this point, is it's like we're well beyond at this point knowing that you need a good agent ID verification tool. But in the process of doing that, how can we make the business more efficient?
Yeah. And that is where a lot of retailers are. To me, it's like everybody coming at it from the same perspective. Like we're seeing retailers that are much more seasoned than they were day one,
100%,
and know that this is important to them.
And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, because you mentioned Massachusetts, New Jersey, Illinois. You have these digital scanning requirements to age and ID verify, but you also have personal information data dump regulations. That's sort of counterintuitive for a visitor management base, but there's still the need from the retailer. Okay, I'm not allowed to know that Jay Rosenthal is the next person in line, right, but I still need him to populate into the queue as, let's say, customer number 56.
Right.
Those are brand new ideas, because this is a brand new vertical, right, sort of building their policies as they go.
And each individual dispensary has their own SOPs, how they want it to run. Like here is different than the dispensaries down the street about how you get into how you check in, then how you get into the queue, and then how you get to the register and how you buy your stuff. Like it is, everybody's a little bit different. That's
and all the time along the line, you've got that consumer, whether you're able to legally know who that is or not. You need these different integration tools, because that's that customer that applies to inventory, it applies to different workflows, all these things.
I hadn't thought of that, actually. I hadn't thought of all those. I hadn't thought of like the data dump.
How about anti-looping? How about the fact that you're not supposed to be in certain places more than once a day?
Right.
That's a Veriscan tool that says, there is a fake ID, but okay, well I didn't get in at this MSO location. I'll go across town,
right,
and try that one. No, sorry, you've already.
What does can I just ask a technology question? Like, what does the verification actually do? Does it go to a database that matches up name, or is it about how the thing looks and feels? Like, what is the?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because there's lots of different ways to validate, and again, there's a lot of misconception that some type of digital scan equals validation. That's absolutely not true. And it can be very expensive to scan an ID and ping some type of third-party source that says, well, Kenny Petticoat exists, but 8290 Willowbreak doesn't exist. Or you could actually ping the DMV directly and say, yes, Kenny Petticoat owns a Nevada ID number.
Right.
But that can get expensive because it's a third-party API call, right? So the reason that we've had so much success is we do it in an all-you-can-eat platter. We have software that has a very good 2D barcode library. So there's about 15,000 algorithms. This Kansas ID doesn't start with 00 or 01. Kansas only manufactures in those two sequences. Kansas didn't manufacture this license. That'll catch about half of the fraudulent IDs in circulation, because the fact is the fraudulent market is getting very, very sophisticated. You can get 3 for $200 from China that are using the same manufacturing equipment as our DMVs are.
Right.
So the barcode's going to be formatted correctly. What you can do on top of that is layer a hologram and watermark library. Now you're at a really high level if you have a good UV hologram IR watermark library. This California bear, it's not quite exactly where it's like 1 millimeter to the right. California didn't manufacture this license.
They didn't get it wrong. Right.
Yeah. Or I mean, it's the fact is it's much more difficult to fraudulently replicate a hologram and watermark library. And the fact is, those licenses are being used for things other than purchasing a quarter ounce of flour.
Right. They're not going in to buy.
No, they're test driving a Tesla gone in 60 seconds type stuff.
Right.
Really high-end crime.
Right.
We've just unlocked an entire different thought process.
Well, right, but also I actually didn't know how it was. But when we made fake IDs, it was like a picture in a dorm room that you basically print out and like find the right font in Apple and like.
Yeah, unpeel the laminate while it was still warm and take an eraser and some whiteout. Yeah, they're gone are those days.
No, I know, and it becomes more difficult obviously when it's actually verified. It's not just scanning it to get it up on the screen; it's scanning it to actually ping something else to make sure it's real.
And it's so important because the fact is we don't have the cultural clout that say alcohol does, right? So. Not that it's okay for a teenager to go into a bar, but the fact is we know it happens on greater college campus areas all over. We're under quite a bit more scrutiny than that, so it's very important that we don't give legitimate reason to be criticized, because I think it's more than just compliance and legality. We're in the plant-based medicine vertical for a reason, and I grew up doing the war on drugs, so I like to joke that, yes, marijuana is a gateway drug, just not in the way that was advertised. This is a gateway to help understand the medical benefits of all the plant-based medicines. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't offer up legitimate scrutiny that would retard the process of helping society as a whole.
Well, Kenny, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think I learned a lot, actually. And we've been doing this for 3 days, and I'm not sure I learned as much as this conversation. Don't tell anybody that, because we've had a lot. But I really appreciate you taking time and being generous with your time today, because you were here super on time, which I super appreciate. I tell my kids if they're on time, they're late. If they're early, they're on time. So when people actually practice that, I really appreciate it. So thanks for making time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
He's Kenny Petticord from ID Scan. I'm Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. I'm getting all of them confused. This is Cultivated live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. We'll be right back with Cal McDonald from Solink. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. I'm Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Rammer. You are Cal McDonald with SoulLink.
Yes, sir.
Instead of me butchering and getting it wrong, and you having to correct me, give me the once-over of SoulLink, and then we're going to dive in.
I kind of want to hear you butcher it.
Okay. Can I tell you what I think what it does, if I'm a retailer, and I know a transaction has happened, I have the receipt, can I rewind all my things to say, this is what happened prior to that receipt? Is that kind of what it is?
I'm going to need to help out a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so everybody has a camera system you need for compliance,
Yes.
right? And we do offer that. We offer that and security systems. Really what's special about SoulLink is we're using analytics from the cameras and we're pulling data from the point of sales.
Yes.
Putting that on a platform. So we're largely a software company where we offer the platform that shows you essentially everything that's happening in your business by leveraging those cameras you already have or the new ones that we install and that data from the point of sales. Okay. So essentially outliers in data or analytics from the cameras to say, what's the traffic in your store? What's it look like? What's the flow of traffic? Are people engaging with new displays? Things that you can figure out through the cameras. So motion sensing on the cameras, things like that. And then through the point of sales, we're pulling in all the data to show you outliers to say, who's discounting the most? Which employees are doing the best job with upselling? How can I learn more about that behavior to replicate that among my other employees? So how can we pull in as much information as possible to give owners, operators, a really clear view of what's happening within their store so they can build up their bottom line?
That's exactly what I said, Cal.
Pretty close, but just added a little nuance.
Little nuance.
You know? Yeah.
Couple extra steps.
A couple extra steps.
Yeah.
It's advanced retail. I mean, it's like if you are doing these things, you get it.
Yeah, we work with retail organizations, we work with restaurants, and we have about 1,000 clients in cannabis as well. So the majority of the time, I mean, there's so many different use cases, but generally it's how can we spot things early on so they don't continue to cause issues in the business over time. That, along with the time savings of we have to go into our point of sales, we have to go into our camera system to verify what happened in a particular moment, whether that's having to do with inventory discrepancies, where we're looking at our inventory to say, okay, we know that someone grabbed this product at some point, how can we speed up the process of finding out what happened there? Or we know that a particular product went across the cash at a certain time because of the point of sales, how do we speed up the process of figuring out what happened in those moments so I can spend my time on things that are higher value to the business?
Or you get a chargeback and you want to do the investigation.
100%.
That's a very applicable use of your technology.
Definitely. We have that happen a lot. And that relates to delivery, for example, right? Where someone says, hey, I didn't get something within my order that, I expected to get. You can just hop on your phone, hop on your computer, and within a couple seconds, look up that result, look up that receipt, pull it up, and you can see exactly what was put into that bag in that moment to say, well, I know that it at least ended up in the bag that was delivered to you, or it wasn't, and you can quickly rectify that with the customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some of the other use cases? Like, what is there anybody, certainly in the cannabis space, using it in interesting? You don't have to name them.
Yeah,
using
who's
it in
your
very
super
interesting ways.
user?
Yeah,
Or not like who it is, but what does your super user do?
Honestly, it kind of depends because we're working with multi-site operators where they have 50 plus sites online, and we're working with single shops, right? Generally speaking, a couple different use cases. There are people who have been in retail before where they're like, man, I used to spend a ridiculous amount of time hopping on, frankly, like NVRs, or typically what you call the recording devices, hopping on those devices and having to fast forward, rewind through footage to try to figure out what happened in particular moments. So when people have that experience, they're like, oh my God, I used to spend probably a couple hours or a few hours a week doing this kind of thing, where they now spend 10 minutes. Right? So that's probably the major use case when people have that experience. When people haven't had the experience, they're looking at opening up a new shop, and they're thinking, hey, I need to make this investment in hardware for security. And really any security company is going to provide what you need for like intrusion detection and like people breaking in and that sort of thing. Right. But the majority of losses actually come from internal issues. It's employee discounting, and it's like basically improper training or employees doing things incorrectly, right? Like at the till. So being able to recognize those things as early as possible and rectify them as quickly as possible, like that's very much the primary use case. Outside of that, we also provide video alarm monitoring. So kind of in a similar vein, because we use the cameras for motion sensing to provide like insights into the business. So how many people are coming through the door? How busy are certain areas of the business? Are people hanging out in the back office? I want to be notified if that's happening on a regular basis. We use the same technology plus a few algorithms to identify people trying to get in the business after hours. Okay, so long story short, traditional alarm system. Drawback of a traditional alarm system like motion sensors on windows and doors and within the retail space is there's no verification of what's actually happening on site. So like an alert goes off, nobody knows what happened, and the actual stats are about 98% of those alerts are false alerts from like a traditional alarm system. We're not the only ones who do video alarm, but it is something that we do. So because we see the camera system and it's more or less a change in pixels, notifies our monitoring station that there's something going on at the business. So we can see in basically real time what's happening at the shop, contact the police and say, I can see what's happening, I can verify 100%, I can actually send you a short clip of what's happening on site, so that their response time is vastly increased because they're like, oh, we can actually catch these guys in the act. We know what's happening. It's not just an alert that
False
has
alarm.
no context.
Yeah.
Right? So our alarms are actually a big part of what we offer, and some people use us not exclusively, but largely for that portion as well. Yeah.
And were you in this space before cannabis?
Yes. So we started in retail. Fast food restaurants was actually the first place we worked. So it was really in fast food. I'm not an expert in that space, but it comes down to, that revenue per transaction, like making sure you can maximize your dollar on every transaction. It's a ridiculously competitive industry, right? Similar to cannabis. So how can we use our existing infrastructure? So something that SoulLink does is we can plug into existing systems. So people have cameras in place. We can take our device, plug it into that existing system, and then we're essentially using our software to make your cameras more useful and more intelligent. So because we started in that retail space, they got their drive-thrus, which are coming more and more into cannabis as well. A lot of employees, a lot of transactions, and it's, we need better insight. It's like, you're going to make a certain amount over a day, over a month. How can we maximize that? And we started that in the restaurant space. We moved more into retail. We're working with quite large retailers as well. But then in cannabis, you have that compliance piece on top of, all the normal retail things, right? So we satisfy that across all states. And then take it a step further by giving you that loss prevention, or really it's a little bit of a broad term, but like just sort of a business optimization tool, more or less.
Yeah. This is right up Krista's alley.
I get so excited.
Okay, here we go.
Because I think future state of being able to leverage this, and why I was asking about your super users is because I'm like, you have a full ability to better understand how displays are working in store and the impact of those displays. And so there's actually we're working with one of your clients right now to build a promotional calendar that will be able to link back the promotional calendar to what happened on the sales floor.
Very cool.
To better understand if positioning a promotion in this particular area in the store, plus or minus, same promotion, A/B test it versus like a couple weeks prior, to then say, actually, like, yes, this physical display in this position in store can influence purchasing behavior in X, Y, and Z ways.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that we're expanding on a regular basis. We are, frankly, we are a leader globally in the loss prevention side and that sort of business optimization side of things. And that's where we're really pushing. There are the security elements, which are incredibly critical, of course. But when it comes to better insights into the business, how to maximize every dollar spent, that's really the direction that we're going in. So for what you're talking about, it's like we offer a heat mapping tool, right? And it comes down to, you take a look at a camera view of like a large retail space, and it's going to show you where virtually no one has traveled and where the primary traffic is, right? So we have customers who will say, okay, the majority of our traffic is here. Let's make sure that our high value or our accessories are in this area, so people are picking them up to increase that basket size. But they can also say, hey, I'd rather divert traffic in this way so we can have people flow through the whole space more efficiently. Just exposing them to more options, and hopefully those customers are now recognizing more value in their experience throughout the retail space, right?
Not only can they optimize their sales per square foot, but if they're then also looking at additional store build outs, considering how they might have adjusted the floor plan.
Huge.
It's that is for me something that I think is super interesting. I don't know if people understand or realize this. I was having a conversation with somebody about SKU inaccuracies. And one of the byproducts of SKU inaccuracies is actually theft, right? Do you have any fun stats about what loss prevention actually looks like in cannabis stores? Because I think that the perception is that there isn't that much loss. We're so highly regulated, we report inventory. But I'm like, that is absolutely not how we see the inventory reports.
Yeah, I mean, it varies substantially, right? So we work a few people on our team. They used to manage stores and own stores. So I'll speak from that experience. So it's pretty direct. Basically, a shop with around 100 transactions per day, which is a smaller shop, a little bit of a lower number of transactions. I know firsthand they're experiencing around a loss of about 10 products per week that just kind of vanish into thin air, right?
Yeah.
And then as the employees were simply made aware that, hey, look at this super neat system we have in place that tracks virtually everything, that number went down to, well, it dropped by about 70% kind of overnight, right? So in terms of like overall industry stats, it's really hard to say because they're going to average everything out, and some places are doing 500 transactions a day, super busy, 30, 40, 50 employees, or way more than that, and then you have your single mom and pop shops, right? Hard to average it out, but with a tool like this in place, I mean, it's likely that you can reduce those internal losses. I mean, in terms of theft, that's like, I don't want to say like 50% loss because I don't want to put my name on that and say like that's necessarily going to happen because it'll vary across sites. But there is that loss piece, and then frankly there's the employee training and just them making mistakes.
I was
right?
going to say it's SKU accuracy.
Yeah.
Like, and what, now I'm going to get nerdy, but the COGS
That
price.
ship has sailed.
The COGS
appreciate it.
price associated with different products will create a loss.
Yeah.
So let's hypothetically say that I give a pre-roll when I should have gave an infused joint.
Exactly.
The COGS associated with the two products is different, and it will create a financial loss if I've given the wrong product to the wrong customer, outside of it being a compliance issue. Compliance issue number one, inventory issue number two, but actually it's also a financial reporting issue later on.
Definitely, and the sooner that you can catch that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And make it a part of training. So just an idea of tools that you can use to sort that stuff out quickly. There's motion search on one side, so just going to the camera within your vault, highlighting a particular product, and then being able to quickly jump to the next time someone actually accessed that product. So being able to figure out when it was grabbed, and then searching through the point of sales to say, I'm looking for whatever, like a pre-roll, Kush pre-roll, something like that. It pops up, it'll show you all the transactions that meet that criteria. Then you can hop in, gives you a list of all those transactions, and then you can zoom in, like, toggle HD, zoom in on the products that are actually crossing the till. And a lot of people recognize that certain products look very similar. So they might say, I know that this is a very similar product to this. I'll actually look up when those products were sold, do a quick audit of when those crossed the counter, and to see, is that what's happening, right? So.
Oh my God. So detailed.
I mean, that was an excellent, also just explanation of your user experience. Like, I've never heard of somebody describe their UX on a digital platform so clearly.
Yeah,
So
without an actual graphic.
Why, thank
Yes.
No, it's
Yeah.
great.
I do it quite frequently.
You do it well.
It's like you're doing it every
I
day.
guess
It's like you've been doing it for 3 days in a row.
Maybe multiple times a day, all day, yeah.
Cal, I really appreciate you coming by and educating me specifically on Solink, because I think I had a nugget of it explained poorly, but it's much better now.
You
and
can
now
do
that,
it much better now.
now that I'll just rewatch Cal saying it and just incorporate it into what I say forever. So thank you so much for coming by, Cal. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we are gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back with Munir Haq. I see him.
And here's the man.
He's the man. We'll be right back after this short break. We'll switch seats, and we'll be right back with Munir.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Welcome back to Cultivated Live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I am Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. You are Eric Schlissel.
Yes,
not
sir.
Munir. Munir's coming on next, but you are Eric Schlissel. We're going to talk about pre-rolled hardware.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about that because you have great insight of what's happening in cannabis, especially at the retail level. And retail is on a major expansion from where it was 2, 3, 4 years ago, and there'll be a major expansion 2, 3, 4 years from now. Talk about what this sort of solution does for, like, I'm a retailer, want to open up.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. Tell me.
I really appreciate that, and
Yeah.
also thank you for having
Oh,
me today.
pleasure.
Really, really great. Pre-rolled fills a very specific niche, and I'm going to take a step back before I get into
Sure.
that niche. Curate, the company, our parent company, has a long and storied past. We met, I believe, in 2018,
Yeah.
maybe? Yeah. And we got started in 2016. And in 2016, 2017, I was figuring out where we're going as an organization because the industry wasn't quite mature enough for what we had to offer. And we started offering it, and then we moved to Canada in 2018, and things really started taking off. And what I realized early on, excuse me, is that everybody's trying to do too much for too many people. And consultancies in specific have a problem of saying yes to too much. And instead of going like this and expanding their scope, they go like that and they get wobbly, right? And so I didn't really want that for Curate, but I see these micro needs of the industry. And over time, Curate has expanded. We have about 50 people now. We're kind of all over the place in the United States and Canada. But our team has matured and developed to the point where I can look at the components of what Curate offers. And as I said the other night, if companies aren't wise enough to use the whole Curate service delivery platform, then okay, why don't we just spin off a little bit of it and make it bite-sized chunks for people that just need one thing or two things or whatever. And we're happy to help with all the other aspects of what we're doing. But it's really taking the Curate procurement and logistics team, spitting them out a little bit, putting a website up, and then selling the hardware components of what we do. So to paint the picture a little further, when Curate goes into a store or a facility or a grow or whatever, we ship out essentially everything pre-configured. We come on site, we spend 8 hours typically. If the site is ready and they follow the instructions, shit happens. But our team typically spends 1, maybe 2 days, depending on the complexity and the size. And this essentially network in a box and pre-configured tablets and pre-configured printers and all of the specific needs of our point of sale and seed to sale partners, we know all of this and we have all of this internal as part of our process. So why not take that and offer that as a standalone option? Because not everybody needs all the services we're offering. And now we're at a point where we can start peeling that off and creating value with pretty light touch. A lot of this is kind of automated on the back end. A lot of this is process that we've done already, and we've been selling hardware through pre-rolled 4 or 5 months at this point, and we have the system down. We know how to evolve what we're doing, again, to go like that. And so pre-rolled is really for those just getting started. And it's for people that, also need printer refills. Everybody needs that, right? Over time, you need a lot of things. But it's like, okay, well, where do I begin? And I think that's a bigger question in our industry right now because, frankly, New York's going to make a whole new line, a whole avalanche of people coming in saying, what do I do now? Yeah. Right? I got my license or I want to apply. And the question is not being answered well enough by anybody. And this is just one of the answers. Okay, you can start with pre-rolled, and we have our close friends and partners, and that's an expanding list of people that we can say, okay, have you thought about what software and why? And then we provide the right introductions, but it's also 100% always giving them the right hardware. Now, installing the hardware is tougher, and we're getting into those implementation services as a separate scope from what Curate does. Curate does a far more white glove approach than what pre-rolled will do, but there's also a need for that. And not every operator, as you know, has a ton of experience, but some do. Some do. What we saw in Canada together is all the ex-Lululemon, all the ex-Burberry, all the ex-executives from large-scale retail coming in and asking the right questions. Right? Like, okay, yeah, I can get one location up, but how does that work with 5? How does that work with multiple states? And as an organization, the larger Curate is trying to say, okay, you know you have these problems, or you might not even know you have this problem, but segmented, this is what we solve for, and you don't have to think about it. And that's really the idea behind pre-rolled. They know they need hardware. Point-of-sale companies know they don't want to sell hardware, and they don't want to have that responsibility, and they know they need to be able to trust the people that are doing it. And so as a trusted source, Curate has built a long reputation of relationships. We just launched our 300th location, and with pre-rolled, it allows us to expand a little bit more without really, firstly, having a ton of investment in time and people and so on our end, but also it allows us to have more of a halo.
Yeah.
It gives us more opportunity.
We've talked about this a lot with people who've come in over the past couple of days, that there is so much emphasis on getting to day zero. Like so much energy, time, money, all that.
Right.
And considerably less time what it's going to be like on day one.
Right.
Like, and to my mind, anything that can be taken off an owner-operator's plate before day one,
Right.
that they can actually focus on what it's actually going to be like to run a business is better. Because it turns out getting to day zero is actually like not the hardest part.
Yeah.
Getting to day 365 is actually a lot harder, I think. And so to my mind, and I'll ask Krista too, like helping to alleviate some of that burden.
Yes.
Like you don't need to think about, they shouldn't need to think about all those things all the time. They should need to think about it to get open and have you think about a lot of it. And then say, well, what are we going to be like when people start coming through the doors?
Absolutely. And who are we going to be when we grow up?
Right.
Right. So for, look, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had a series of businesses over the years, and I've been through quite a bit of being on many sides of many tables, right? And in this industry, we don't have a long track record.
Right.
We certainly don't have a long track record of success, right? We have a long track record of people coming in and having a window, first mover advantage, sometimes second. But then when the third movers come in, or the market flattens, or the price of flour goes through the floor, everybody's business model gets all screwed up. And the more, as an entrepreneur, I can help other entrepreneurs alleviate that pressure and that pain and know what they're getting into, the better I feel, right? Forget about the business, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're trying to help people succeed. And we know, being in the industry for long enough, that those that are here today may or may not be here tomorrow. But it's the people that have discipline early and learn those hard lessons, either by hiring a company like Forte to run them through a boot camp, or a consultant to help them understand all of these landmines that we know are coming. We know this. This is not new. Each market is a little bit different, absolutely. But I think that one of the things that gets lost on the retailer side is that these are widgets, right? Cannabis is a widget of sorts. It's perishable, and it is not that much more complicated than that. Obviously, there's regulations and there's specific things about, it's a higher, shrinkage rate, all that other stuff, right? But at the end of the day, we're talking about retail, right? And on the ag side, on the grow side, we're talking about high-tech ag, right? And in the middle, we're talking about food production, right? Like, there are similar industries that we can pull all of these lessons in from and help people with playbooks and help people with, in our case, just hardware.
Right.
So it's one less thing in that whole pile of things they need to think about. Now, the right question to ask if somebody's buying hardware from us is, okay, now what? Right? It's always now what? But having a few steps ahead of you mapped out, it's about as good as you can get for a lot of this.
Yeah.
And then you have to figure out, okay, can I get open? And also, I'm going to move away from hardware for a second, people. That's what a lot of people get wrong.
Yes.
They just hire the wrong people with not the right experience and not the right attitude of understanding that this is going to change.
Yeah.
Right? It's a life of change.
Well, it all boils down to almost any industry, to people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you have people who work in your shop that have an eye towards compliance, but also selling product, but they have a retail, right?
Right.
Is it, Krista's, like, you just have the people that are going to make it successful.
Yep.
And the more people you have, the more you can get it right or get it wrong, and I think that's challenging too. But again, it puts the pressure on, like we had someone that's opening up January 15th in New Jersey, and now he has people.
Right.
Like, he didn't last month, he didn't have people. Now he has people, and those people are waiting just like he is for the license and going the
Right.
background check. Like,
Right.
it's really now it's about motivating people to hand the reins to.
Yeah.
Totally. And there's also this, the word I'm looking for, when somebody gets their license, right? Like you were saying, that's the beginning of day one.
Yeah.
Right? That's like, okay, and then they take a breather. They're like, okay, well, we're going to open in 6 months or 3 months or whatever that is. Those goalposts change.
Oh, yeah.
And also prioritizing what's important up front, like finding the right people. On day 0.01, you should be looking for your next generation of leaders that you can bring in. And even if we're talking about one location, you need to have the right smart person running it. And you need to support them, which is what Pre-Rolled, what Forte, and what Curate, all we're doing is supporting the owners.
In this one instance in New Jersey, they don't do the background check until you get your license. So like you have to have people ready to go to the background check to then get your license to then wait like.
It's a very difficult hiring process.
It's like, come on board, but then there's going to be a background check which you may not pass, but it's also going to take 15 days. Like you're just paying people to wait.
You know, speaking of knowing what's ahead, I don't understand how these states don't see this ahead of time, right? We have the playbooks, but then also it's about the execution of the playbook. And so, New York is a great example of that. You can have all the best intentions, you can have all the best, social equity ideas, but then when it comes to execution and lawsuits, which, are one of the variables they can't control.
We had a lawyer on first this morning in New York. She was smiling when she said it was the most litigious state. I don't think she even noticed she was doing it. I think she was trying to tell a joke.
You're saying too much here.
I was like, wait, you're smiling too much.
Yeah. Well, it is. And it's I actually, just on that subject, I don't think that a lot of folks in our industry, everybody's salivating over the business opportunity. All right, fine. But I don't think they quite realize how crushed a lot of our friends are going to be when they realize that their model doesn't scale.
Right.
We're going to have so many licenses at once, nothing like we've seen before. And I don't know that everybody's going to be prepared for that onslaught of new folks that don't have the lessons to learn from. New York does not have the biggest illicit market. They do not have, there's a lot of yeah.
You have to be running so perfectly from day one.
Yeah.
With basically not writing off any of your expenses to like you really have to be on it from day one, as opposed to being able, like most businesses, to make some variability of mistakes.
Totally, and over that, the first 12 months of most operations are gravy.
Yeah.
Right? You launch, there's not a lot of competition, you're figuring your shit out, but you're not really looking at all of your accounts payables.
Right.
You're just thinking you're making money, and so it's okay. But having that discipline up front and knowing that going in really does make the difference when we look at month 18 or 24 when it starts getting dry. Yeah. Then panic sets in. Well, you don't want to be panicked. You want to be prepared. Yeah. And that's hard for a lot of folks. And so any way that Pre-Rolled or Curate and Forte can make it easier, that's really what we're here for. I want to see this industry succeed. I want more access to the plant. I want access for everybody, if they want it or not. But everybody has a human right to have this plant. So any way we can make it easier for people to access that, we're here for it.
Well, I'm in favor of that and in favor of you helping them do that. And I want to be respectful of Munir's time too. And you should want to be too, because he works for you. Thank you so much, Eric, for coming in this morning and for making time and sharing your expertise and talking about pre-rolled hardware. We, of course, will see you soon, I'm sure.
I hope so.
If not like later today, but certainly online and in real life in the weeks and months to come. So thanks for coming by.
Amazing. Thank you, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We'll be right back from Planet 13 on Cultivated Live. I'm Jay Rosenthal. She's Krista. We'll be back with Munir Haq, really, for this time, in just a moment. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Planet 13. This is Cultivated Live. I'm Jay Rosenthal. She is Krista Raymer. We've been here 2.5 days now,
Yes.
but this is the first time we've seen Munir Haq here.
Yeah,
How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good. We got a little Curate teaser with Eric before you.
Oh, okay.
But give us the pitch when people walk up to you on the trade show floor and they say, tell me what Curate is. Tell me what Curate is.
We are a IT security firm. So what that means is if you're building a dispensary, cultivation, manufacturing, we will come in and do the full security install, bring in the internet, give you a secure network, install your POS, and all the bells and whistles that turn on and off, and talk to the internet, and then secure it, make it functional, make it compliant. And once you open your doors and you're generating revenue, we are your IT team. We make sure you're up all the time.
And you, true or false, you are one of the people that goes everywhere and meets everybody.
I do, and it's mainly because of how passionate I am about all the new folks that are about to enter the industry or apply for a license, and all the new markets and the social equity programs. And I want to be an ear in the room, and if there's any value I can add, I want to spit it out.
How many days on the road a year? Do you know?
A very long time.
Have you been home?
I think I'm on the road and on the plane more than I'm home.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because I even know your schedule a little bit. You've definitely been in Missouri, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Las Vegas in the past.
Yeah, and I'll be back in Maryland in a couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And when you do that, you're in markets of varying ages, for sure. A lot of them new.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does the level of knowledge increase when new markets come on from previous markets? Because are they building on the success of other markets, or does everybody start from sort of zero when you're talking to them?
Almost zero.
Yeah.
So because of all the
disheartening, but yes.
yeah, but because of all the travel that we've done, so Canada taught us a lot. And a little history on Curate, like we were running around like 8 years ago talking about the importance of compliance and like data security and protecting all of your information and making sure that you can always transact, right? Nobody cared. Right?
No, because they didn't have the cost of what it looked like if they didn't have that.
Exactly, right? The downtime, right? Like you can't transact for 6 hours. What do you lose? I guarantee you that one day cost you more than a year of like IT services. Yeah. But Canada all of a sudden was like, we hear you. Can you become Canadian? And we're like, all right, let's call our lawyers. Sure.
Yeah.
And we did. And we learned so much working in a federally legal market that when the states and the new line of applications for all the different markets started coming on board, people were just they were easier to talk to. They wanted to listen. And that was very, it's kind of like a breath of fresh air. It was like, let's talk to everybody. And that's what motivates me to be on the road. Also, I'm sick of seeing people getting screwed over. Like, I don't know, like, try not to get upset when I talk about it, but it's like these folks are contributing to this industry, which is the reason why we're all here. So if we are hurting them and making them go broke before they can generate revenue, what are we doing? Right? So I try to add some some facts and guidance of what to look out for. And yeah, I would love for you to use me, but if you don't, at least take away like what I'm telling you should have or look for.
Yeah.
We got some helpful tips.
Yes.
Do I have some helpful tips?
Yeah, you've got like lots of helpful tips. Like,
yeah.
listen in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's free. You want to talk? It's free.
Right.
Maybe buy me a drink. Like,
right. You're up for it. It's I think about this is so weird, but like I think about you and the team when I see like sometimes back of house of a dispensary and go into the like tech room.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, this is not. Curate didn't do this.
No.
Like I see that, but then I was actually at a office building, not cannabis related, and they had a locked internet cabinet, and I needed to plug directly in because I didn't want to be on Wi-Fi. And I was like, does anybody have the key? They're like, yeah, it's underneath, like it's the key. That's the key that you see right there. I'm like, no, like it's supposed to be a locked cabinet. Like, why would you keep the key where I can find it just by yelling? Like,
your heartbeat is accessible to anybody that walks back there,
And when I've heard you guys talk about it, it is so much like I think you and Eric, when you do a presentation, like you show a spaghetti wires.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
you show like, here's what it should look like.
Yeah.
Because when you call when something goes wrong or you need to do something,
Yeah.
you want to be talking to the neat box,
Right.
not the spaghetti wires.
Yeah, you don't want to lift a bunch of cables and crawl underneath and be like, okay, let's follow this one from this end to this end. Nope, that wasn't it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you provide more feedback than turn it off and turn it back on.
Control Alt Delete. No.
That's really good feedback, though. Like, turn it off and turn it on is great. You know, my wife sometimes calls me for IT help from work. I was like, did you turn it off and on? She's like, oh my God, thank you, everything's working.
Yes. No.
Send her a
that
bill.
That used to be the ongoing joke always when I used to have to call IT and I worked with a retailer, and the first response every time was turn it off and turn it back on.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I already did that. That's why I'm calling.
Or we're seeing this a lot because of the rat nest. Is it plugged in?
What?
You know, like
Oh,
motors.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
seriously, No. Oh.
Is it
Oh,
plugged in?
God.
Yeah.
No.
Because, you know, rat nest, something moves, it will yank something
Right.
out.
The whole thing. Well, I've been doing that. This has been on me.
Yeah.
But the plug here, I keep moving my computer this way, and it keeps unplugging here. So I'm like, I'm plugged in, and then the battery goes to like 0 because I actually am not plugged in. Yeah. But this actually speaks to the fact that not everybody you're dealing with, certainly in the retail level,
Yeah.
has great experience of setting up IT or security or compliance or any of it, and they need people to help them guide the way.
100%. When you're in the beginning of a build out or you're about to scale, there's so many things you need to worry about. There's a million things going on. You guys know this. You've seen it. Like, you don't need to worry about this. Give it to somebody else and focus on everything else. So, you know, take all the help you can, and it's also about vetting your vendors, like who's truly doing what, and you know, having like a good PM to maybe oversee it. But I just recommend, like, it's a very stressful, you know, time, and alleviate as much as you can, right?
Because it's going to get more stressful. Even no matter how stressful you think the setup is, wait till people are in the shop for a week and you're like, oh my God.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Munir, I really appreciate you coming by and being
same.
patient with your time and sharing your expertise and spending time even outside of this week, because it's always nice to see you in person and
Same.
online. But in person is fun too. Thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys.
He's Munir Hawk. You are Krista Raymer. I am Jay Rosenthal. This is Planet 13, and the program is Cultivated Live. We will be right back with Deepak Anand, who I did see walking by. We'll be right back with Deepak.
Thank you, guys.
We are back with Cultivated Live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I am Jay Rosenthal. You are Krista Raymer. And you are Deepak Anand, the world famous. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I've seen you a lot at the show.
Yeah.
Which tells me that you are out early and out late working on things of cannabis around the world. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
What are you working on right now?
Several things.
Let's hear it.
Working with a number of CPG and larger tobacco companies that are looking to enter the space, helping them with regulatory compliance, and even just understanding the sector generally from a bigger kind of corporate perspective, because they look at things very differently than a smaller kind of startup would.
And they look at it as when and how do we enter, or what does the landscape look like, or what will it look like in 3 and 5 years, like, or all of those things?
All of those things, plus I think generally even very much a lens around product safety, product quality, a lot of those sort of things. I mean, you have to understand some of the bigger kind of, particularly on the tobacco side, these people have learned the hard way with some of the harms around tobacco and what some of these products do. And I think the lens is very much like, what does it mean when you add CBD, THC, minor cannabinoids, terpenes in a heated or a burnt or a vaped or any formulation? What is that going to do? Because they've learned that through tobacco over the years, that when you heat nicotine, as an example, it has some pretty negative side effects. So that's the lens they apply.
Can I ask a question about sort of their thought process? Do they think the industry has a long way to go to mature? I don't even know a nice way to say that.
Yeah, like what's the temperature check perception?
Yeah, I think there's two schools of thoughts. I think one is there's a rush to get in and, not miss out on the green rush, if you will. I think the realization now, particularly with the capital markets and the way everything's gone, is probably not a mad rush, and also the longer they wait, the better valuations are getting. So certainly not this rush to get in, but very much a measured approach with, want to get in, want to understand what the space looks like, but also want to balance, what is this going to look like in terms of valuations in the next year and a half, and it's certainly been looking up historically for them. So, that's another lens. Yeah.
I think about larger companies like that as they approach cannabis and a lot of the time how they're structured. I mean, we've seen some examples in Canada. I think of large companies who have either made investments or had some ownership of a company, and maybe it didn't translate very well when you gave it that kind of level of structure into a relatively unstructured space still.
Yeah.
What did those conversations look like? Or Fire and Flower is a very good example, very public.
Yeah.
Around what that kind of corporate CPG paired with another group, what that translated to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You look at this historically in terms of bigger company involvement versus the current, and I'll compare and contrast. You brought up Fire and Flower, a great example, and again, you've got Altria and Chronos and a few other examples, the obviously Constellation Brands and a Canopy. And I think the previous thought process was, let's just put some money. I think these management teams know what they're doing. Let's see what they do, and leave it at that. That obviously hasn't worked out well. I think the new school of thought, and if you look at OGI in particular, and you look at the BAT initial investment and the follow-up investment, it's very much a working collaboration. So they have something called the PDC, which is a product development corporation that they've put together, which is OGI and BAT at the same time, and they're together developing products. So BAT has as much say in it as OGI does. So that's an example of them sort of, working with operators to be able to get desired outcomes they need and get involved on boards, get involved in management teams, get involved in day-to-day, and actually just work with these companies. And I think that's the sort of new approach that we're seeing from the bigger and newer CPG kind of tobacco companies coming into the space. And I think that's a really valid way of doing this, because there's a lot of inherent experience that these companies have, not just on the management side, but also very much on the product development, product formulation side. So it's nice to see that win-win partnership. We talk about smart money, and this is smart money with a value add, right? It's not just cash. So I think that's the kind of new approach.
I think a lot about, and we were having a conversation the other night, and brand building and the struggle to build brand only in cannabis and what that has looked like, and if a customer is brand loyal and all of that. But when these other companies who have a bigger presence in the customer purchasing perception, like they're showing up in their other areas of their home, for example, and then they're looking at cannabis. There's a really interesting opportunity for crossover, but it also has this threat.
Yeah.
And have you been having any conversations like that right now?
A few. I think there's definitely a few bigger players that have very sophisticated brands, that very well-recognized brands. They're looking to get into the space. I think it's always a concern, particularly on tobacco and alcohol, to get a tobacco or alcohol brand into cannabis. I think there's a lot of stigma around that, and I think that will be a challenge. I think the industry has not yet fully embraced even big tobacco's participation, which I totally get in many cases, but there's that hesitation on, aligning yourself so closely, particularly at retail and at brand level, to be able to, maybe align with sort of someone that historically has been part of, issues like tobacco and smoking and stuff like that.
Well, it's interesting because when we got to Hall of Flowers in Santa Rosa this year. By last year, I mean this year. Pabst Blue Ribbon was the first brand you saw.
Yeah.
Because they have a cannabis beverage. And it's a little bit like, it was almost shocking, to be honest.
Felt very Pabst.
Yeah, I was like, oh, the brand is so strong, that's the first thing. But also,
sure.
this is a cannabis show, and that is a cannabis product. But it was maybe the first time so blatantly that was like, oh, they're leaning in.
Yeah, you also, as a CPG company, you would be very considerate of who your customer base is and who your core customer, like who's the ones that are driving 80% of your revenue.
Absolutely.
And Pabst is probably doing some kind of ethnographic, demographic analysis to say, our customers are not going to be upset
Right.
if a cannabis product exists. We might not buy it.
Right.
Or they might not
Sure.
buy it, but we're not going to be upset if the product
Even on a very small
Different
level,
thing.
like Collective Arts in Ontario, like pretty big microbrew, I would say, and they have cannabis beverages, and I think again like there's no stigma from one customer to the other.
Yeah.
It's like a brand extension as much as it is a new product.
feels okay for that customer for
Yeah.
those to exist on both places.
No, exactly. Yeah. I think eventually where this is getting to is, I think eventually you start to see them take more advantage of, co-branding, let's just call it. But I think right now the customer segmentation that you were talking about is certainly happening. So there's a very big lens, at least on behalf of clients I work with, to look at what does the customer look like? What do they want? What are they interested in? And all the stuff on the CBG, tobacco, alcohol side that they've learned over the years, right? So there's a lot of consumer segmentation and analysis going on, way more than a lot of what the LPs, or any of the license holders in the U.S. Currently do. It's very much that lens on what does the customer profile look like. I've been in boardrooms where we spend days just analyzing who is the customer and creating a product around that.
That and like understanding what not just the first product is going to be, but the life cycle of selling to that customer as well, and understanding when and what products become relevant at what times.
Totally.
Yeah.
With a safety lens, right? Like, for
Right.
example, right now you've got products like CBN gummies, and it's like, okay, yeah, anecdotally CBN's good for sleep, but what does that mean from a toxicity perspective? What does it mean when you combine all these cannabinoids and, you're now ingesting it in some cases, combusting it? What does that actually look like? What's it going to do when it gets in? So there's a lot of that science, which I think the industry needs, and that's what I'm super excited about in terms of the way that I see these companies kind of coming in and taking an approach.
Yeah. Can we zoom out a little bit and talk more? Well, I guess both zoom out, but also move to like Europe.
Yep.
Right, where there's always a story or two every month about like Germany or but then it sort of dies off. It's like oh, and then it's not really much. Or Portugal, is there ever going to be like a cannabis market in Europe that mirrors what happens like in Canada?
I think eventually. The challenge is, and we've learned this, of course, in Canada, is there's this balance between companies that are trying to raise capital and actually start to get going, taking advantage of that hype, versus what's actually happening on the ground. So the answer to your question is, yes, it'll happen, but it's going to be a slow process. Like, it's not going to be a year and a half. It's going to be a 5, 6, 7 year process. There will be an industry. There's no question about it. I mean, there's the big pieces are that a 300-pound gorilla like Germany is moving, but it's going to take them some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the winds are shifting, right? Switzerland's already got legal cannabis, stores now where you could actually go in and purchase it. Malta's got some stores, but to the scale where it is in North America, we're at least 5, if not 7 years away from that happening.
Makes New York look speedy.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to understand a lot of the North American states have had some sort of a program in place. In Europe, you really haven't had that. There's no tolerance, right? It's just not existed.
Like medical presence hasn't been.
No, I mean, Germany's had a medical program. You get it through pharmacies, but it's not the same as New
It's
York.
not like it was in Michigan where it was like 300,000 patients.
Yeah.
And like,
Also, it's not like New York where you have these like vans running around like you can get cannabis. It's not the same.
right. Well, Deepak, I always appreciate talking to you. I really like it.
Thanks for having me. Happy to
Well,
be here.
I'm glad we did. And it was better towards the end, meaning people were not arriving straight out of being out at night when they got here at 8 o'clock in the morning and came on. So this is much more thoughtful. Not that the people early were bad too.
Wow,
they were
Jay.
great. No, I'm just kidding. We had more.
Shaking.
Everybody was on it, but by day 3 early in the morning to ask people to show up to a dispensary seems like we might have wanted to delay it for an hour. So next year we will live and learn. But thank you so much for making time and joining us. We always appreciate it, Deepak.
Thanks for having me.
We are live at Planet 13 in Las Vegas. This is Cultivated Live. I'm Jay. She is Krista. We are coming back in a moment with Leighton Murdoch, who I see from Aroma Culinary. We'll be right back with Leighton. Thanks, Deepak.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome back. We are nearing the end of Cultivated Live from Planet 13 here in Las Vegas. It is Friday, December 1st. I am Jay Rosenthal. You are?
Krista Raymer.
Krista Raymer. I know that because we've been doing this for 3 days. And it's been great. And we're going to talk about food, cannabis, the intersection of both with the crew from Aroma Culinary.
Yes.
Some action motions.
I just sits in the background.
It just eats. I like it.
I like it.
I like it. You have something in front of you. 2 things in front of you. One is a hot sauce. One is olive oil.
Yeah.
And they're nearly empty. It's been a good show.
Great show.
It's been a great show.
Have you been providing accoutrement to people out on the street?
We was out till 3 a.m., of course.
How's it? My first impression, especially on the hot sauce, was that it smelled like the perfect hot sauce that I want.
Yeah.
Is that what people are finding when they taste it?
Yeah, I really want to spice it up a little bit, but it's just that I want to keep it mid-level.
Usable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, everybody don't have my palate. Because we're islanders, so, we could tolerate some real heat.
Yes. And I'm not and can't.
So you are the hot sauce.
Although I do like hot sauce, and we live close to Buffalo, so it's not uncommon. But
Buffalo.
that smells like the perfect heat for me.
And you're a buffalo wing guy. So
I do like, yeah.
When I saw you go, I was like, oh, you felt that vinegar. Okay.
Yeah, that vinegar. I love that vinegar.
Good.
But we have a sister-in-law who that smell would make her like she hates vinegar.
Yeah.
So like you have something like that, or even like Tabasco, like she doesn't like any of it. But that is like perfect for me.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's why I drank half the bottle. Just kidding.
I was like, can we get a hot dog?
Seriously, well, we're going out to eat after. I'm talking about sort of the passion you have for this.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've talked before, and it does come across that you said like this is.
So, it's kind of like a passion project that I wanted to turn into something real. Being a chef, I realized there wasn't anything that I could use. I would have to like play around, hopefully that the dosage is right. So with this, all my stuff is lab tested. Make sure I use a nano emulsion now, fast acting. Mm-hmm. That way you feel it right away. You could gauge, so you don't overdose.
Overdose. Yes,
Yeah.
Comma.
Right. There's not overdose.
You saw the pause, right?
We actually we did talk nano emulsion when one of the days this week
About beverage.
about beverage.
Source beverages, nano emulsion.
Yes, we got a deep dive
We did.
into it. And go ahead.
No, you brought the product essentially to be able to use it yourself.
Yes.
But you do these essentially experiences.
Yes.
Talk to me about who the demographic is. Like, I feel like the people who were purchasing your product or interested in your product surprised you.
Yeah.
So it actually became when Chef Layton created the product. We started looking to utilize circles that we would hang in anyway, things that we would normally do, and just add a little bit of elevation to it. What we started to realize is, number one, our female consumers, they love the product. They're a lot more progressive in their thought process on the culinary side. A lot of the guys are still into the flower. So it's a little bit more of a teaching curve to the guys over the ladies. The ladies are like, okay, you guys got me. If anything goes down, okay, I'm going to go try this. And it allows us to collect data, find out what that perfect microdose is. And that is what we use to start to push forward the product. Because now we realize this was something that our everyday consumer could take control of. And that's the biggest problem that we have in the culinary space when it comes to edibles, elevated foods at all. It's the control when it hits. So that's why we go back to the nano emulsion.
Yeah, because nano emulsion, correct me when I get this wrong, like it actually faster onset and that, but also faster offset as well.
Yeah, that's part of our thing is fast in, fast out.
Yeah.
And I think
that's why it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons too why I think women gravitate to it more, like during COVID, they're the one that was staying home with their kids. They don't want to smell like weed. So the best thing for them was an edible. And with this, we just like, getting a little crazy, sprinkle a little olive oil in your salad, coast you through the rest of your day, you're good.
Don't have to tell
and especially
me.
if you're at work too.
Don't tell me. There's no shame in that. That's how we all. You got to get through it. You got to get through it for sure. But it is interesting, and it's part of this. I think fits a trend of the conversations we've had. That like more and more, like legalization happens in the States, it gets a lot of fanfare, and then at some point, more people start adding it to their lives. in like normal,
Yes.
totally normal ways,
Yes.
but in the way that works for them, right? Just what you're saying, right? Like what works for me, what do I like, what the onset, offset I like how do I want to consume, do I want to smoke, do I want to, but it becomes part of people's normal activity, which is great for the industry. Right?
Yeah.
That's the absolute point. It's literally normalization before legalization. Like,
Yeah.
we travel the country doing these dinners, so we're speaking to people at our events, we're speaking to people in the supermarket, we're speaking anywhere. You know me, I'm talking about this 24/7. And you start to realize that the more understanding they get, which is why our dinners started to take on that form of edutainment. Like, it's a good time, but we're showing you, hey, non-infused food, we're infusing it with the sauces the same way we want you to do it at home. Here's what 4 milligrams feels like. Here's what 8 milligrams feels like. The more of that, now people are doing it on their own, and they're educating their friends. That's how we get to push it down the line. So by the time it does go federal, the culinary aspect of it will be bigger than what it is now.
Yeah.
So we're happy to be trailblazers in that arena.
Yeah.
We're lucky you're trailblazers in the arena.
Thank you.
Because you care about even the fact that like we don't we want it to be an enjoyable experience. We want meet people where they are. Use the products that taste delicious. Like
We want repeat customers. So we just try to make sure we accommodate everybody.
Yeah.
I also just want to acknowledge that you also went down a path and was willing to see that your personal bias isn't necessarily how the customer was going to use it or want it or who the customer was going to be. I don't think that if you were sitting here in front of us that the average person would be like, you're developing a product where the core customer are women eating salads.
So when I change the packaging 3 times every year, so it's like it was more masculine. But then I realized, that's not our base. It's women. So we change it to gear more towards women. And it's like we're not married. I'm not married to my ideas. If you don't like something, because there's a dispensary that we that carry a product in Brooklyn called Happy Buds. I spoke to the manager and I asked her what do you think? She was like, they want to actually see it. So even when I explained to her why the bottles were actually matte white first, is to keep the sunlight out, she was just like, I get that.
The customer doesn't give a shit.
They want to see it. So instead of doing a clear bottle, I best thought it was a frosted bottle, and I showed it to her, and she was like, "Okay, this makes sense."
Yeah.
So it's just like I listened to what my customers wanted us pivot.
We're also in a new space, right? Yeah. So we're literally creating the blueprint as we move forward. So for us, it is absolutely imperative that we stay adaptable. Right, our vision doesn't change, but the journey to the vision, we have to collect data, and we're continuously moving this thing around. I love our original bottle because it has a squeezy top. Yeah. It's easy for dosing, but we started to run into those problems. They didn't know what was inside. They wanted to see it, so it's like you have to, especially if you're promoting a premium product like this, we have to be able to listen to the consumer.
Absolutely. Anything you've seen at the show or talking to people that you're like, I hadn't seen that before, or this is an interesting way to take sort of a similar space, or even something new that sort of struck you as you've been in Las Vegas the past couple of days?
To me, it's how many people still don't know that you can infuse sauces. Like it's, and then when you say seasonings, like how do you do that? So it's still like, I'm surprised that a lot of people don't know. That just shows like I got a lot of work to do, or I'm not working hard enough.
Or there's a lot to go after. Right? There's
exactly.
The other scenario is like it's full, it's chock full. Everybody already figures it out, and there's no market to go after.
Yeah.
But there's blue sky ahead.
Yeah, and then once you explain to them like I'm giving you control, like you're gonna be able to like turn any meal you want into an edible, but you're gonna be able to control the dosage of the edible, and then that's what's more appealing to them.
I like that.
Funny enough, this MJ Biz for me, and it's only my second, so I don't have a wealth of knowledge.
Well,
but I know
you've been here one more time than most people that are here.
Right. Listen, this year I definitely feel the interactions person to person have been a little bit more deliberate. Last year and in prior events, I feel like everyone walks the room giving their 30-second pitch. You're not gonna make any impressions. We've realized this year that person to person experience we love the product. We also want you to invest in us. Be loyal to what we have cooking because we have a vision. We have proof of concept. We've been doing it like, listen to us. We got you. And once you start to build that trust, now it's easy to share your vision with other people. And this year has been great for that. It's been an amazing MJ Biz.
That's great. That's great. What about next year?
We're here.
With
Every year.
seasonings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's with seasonings.
And
I
a
like
balcony suite.
Okay. We're going to mark it down. Just make sure to text me where you guys are. That's a party I want to go to. I really appreciate you guys stopping
Thank
by and
you.
making time because I know that it's a long week and to catch you at the end of the week,
Yeah.
or all of us at the end of the week can be hard, but thank you so much for sharing your passion, sharing the journey, but also the way you guys are going about it because I love
Thank
it.
you.
You get it.
We
Thanks, guys.
appreciate you guys. Also, remember, because taste matters. All right, lock it in.
That's what,
Yeah.
because taste matters.
Because taste
There you
matters.
go. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
We are still live, Cultivated Live at Planet 13 in Las Vegas. We have one more guest coming up, I believe. We have Avihu Tamir. We'll grab him. We will get on the air and we'll wrap this up live from Las Vegas. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Cultivated Live at Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I'm Jay. You are Krista. We're here with Avihu Tamir.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Cannabo, and we're going to talk specific. We're going to get out of the U.S. We're going to get out of North America. We're going to talk about the U.K. So we're going to look at You're going to look in the crystal ball on the horizon, and tell us what's going to happen across the pond.
Okay.
Definitively with dates attached to it. No, I'm just kidding. Talk to me about the company first, then we'll get into sort of more
so
details.
Cannabo started as a medical device company. We took quite a big challenge to medicalize vaporization, to bring to the market the first medical device vape pen. Mainly, not because vapes are not great now, but mainly to be able to sell it outside. If you're going outside of North America, in Australia maybe, in Europe, in UK, vapes are almost non-existing because of regulation. It has to be a medical device, and it's non-existing.
Right.
So that was our first mission. We were the first cannabis company listed on the London Stock Exchange. We got some attention from the market, and we bought a telemedicine company and basically became last mile. Now we have an online clinic, pharmacy, and distribution, obviously beyond just vapes. And tackling the UK market and very, very soon the German market as well.
Talk to me about the gap between like a vape pen here and a medical vape pen that you are producing. Is it about dosage? Like what are the different qualifications to make it a medical device?
So our device does have a dose. So every inhalation will generate 1.2 milligrams. So it's like a microdose.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a requirement. It's not a medical device requirement. Mm-hmm. It's more for the doctors to feel that they're prescribing something. Doctors like to prescribe. Ideally for them, give them a cannabis pill.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the patient don't want a cannabis pill, so that's the gap. But if you're looking at what is required, it's the materials. Really, it was a process of almost 2 years, maybe even more, and it was mainly products. As we all know, all the vapes are made in China. Mm-hmm. They're using good quality, but even the great quality is not medical grade. And this was the discussion. We needed to really change almost all of the plastic, all of the metals parts, the ceramic parts with medical grade. So it's almost the same, but just with different level of standards.
Mm-hmm.
And then proving it. If you're saying a meter dose, if you're saying the battery is lasting for a certain time, you just need to test and prove it. And mainly a lot of regulation, getting the stamp. But it's a revolution, because once a medical device will be approved, it will be the first for this technology. There's no electronic cigarette that is a medical device. Right. So it will be the first time of this type of technology.
Are there unique challenges that you came across in this process that you didn't expect or did expect but took longer? Like what are the unexpected things that happen in this process?
Wow, so many.
Like how many? Where's the list?
So first of all, trying to do it with, we're working together with Jupiter and Smore, CISO. So trying to coordinate 3 companies internationally with a German audit notified, and lost in translation is happening a lot. So that was interesting. Then we hit with COVID.
Yeah.
So suddenly your auditor is saying, yeah, but I can't fly. Definitely not for China, probably not to the US. I will audit your European facility. And then you're telling them there's no European facility. Right. So let's wait until COVID will pass and I can do that. There was a lot of surprises on the way.
Yeah, as there is in every part of the whole industry.
I think regulation, one of the things that I learned in regulation is you can be sure it will take more than you expected.
Right. There's some surety in that.
Always.
Yeah. And when you're here and walking the trade show floor and meeting with people, like what does the gap look like between what's happening here and what's happening in the UK or other places? Like, is it just a vast chasm that never the two shall meet? Or do you think there's a time where like the level of quality and product that you're putting out in a sort of medicalized vape pen versus a vaporizer versus what's happening here? Like, will there be one international market in 10 years that, you know, people are freely trading technology and product across the world? Or is that excuse the pun, is that a pipe dream?
No. In my opinion, we're going to have a unified market. 10 years is a good time frame. I think the difference that I see here versus Europe, okay, or the rest of the world, let's be honest, North America and the rest of the world is a good way to define it. The international markets are limited by regulation, therefore innovation of products are limited, less. You have definitely less products. volumes are smaller, so all of the equipment's here. We're talking about filling machines. We're talking about just pre-rolls and stuff like that. Everything is just a smaller scale. We're looking to deploy in pharmacies in Germany filling machines for the carts, for the vape carts. The smallest one here can run, I don't know, 500 an hour, but that's what a pharmacy is selling a month. Would they buy a machine, put it in the pharmacy for running it 2 days a month? So you really need to find the right structure for that. But I think that the markets are moving forward faster than people see right now. I think most of the market will wake up somewhere in the middle of next year or end of next year and discover there's a real market already in Europe. Everyone is talking about Germany. People are missing completely how fast the UK market is growing. In 2022, there was 7,000 kilos imported into the UK. This year it's going to be 30,000, so it's 4x. And average of a gram in the UK right now is 7 or 8 pounds. So the market today is more than 200 million pounds in the UK today.
It's like under the radar almost.
If it's doing another 2 or 3x this year, next year, it's going to be a $500 million market. Didn't start yet.
Right.
So I think Europe is starting to move forward, and you see now bigger numbers. Still no MSOs. The Canadian companies are almost disappeared. It's really a market of local players, except of Curaleaf. They're a significant player, but the only player there that is non-European.
Is it because the regulatory burdens are too high, not worth it? The time horizons aren't long and are too long. Like, is it, or some combination of all of them plus capital markets drying up?
So I can only tell you what I'm hearing when I'm speaking with them, especially in this event. I came to meet some of the MSOs, and I think that it's this feeling that there's, first of all, still a lot of business to be done in the US.
Right.
It's a big market, significantly bigger than any other. So focus. Cash-wise, it's not the ideal time for public companies, so you want to focus and what you know that you're doing. But really, the biggest insight from this last 2 weeks were there's not a lot of bottlenecks where you can say, okay, if I have a license, it's worth X amount. If you have a dispensary license here, you know how much it how it's worth even before you opened. Think about this, that in Europe, in the UK, you don't have this limited amount of licenses, not for cultivation, not for processing, definitely not for dispensing. So where is this margin going to be tomorrow morning? And I think that's a different way of looking at it, because in the rest of the world, the game is not going to be licenses. It's going to be brand and product. So
it's different mindset.
Yeah.
Different business.
What are you buying? Where are you investing?
Right.
And I think that's the real different in point of view.
I actually haven't been following. It should have been the level of conversation, like on stage here at MJ Biz. I know at some points, like the international conversation was big and people were super gung-ho about it. Has there been a lot of programming, have you seen, at the show about any international markets aside from North America?
Not so much. I know there were a few, but I haven't seen too many talks about the international market.
Yeah.
I really think that there's something that a lot of people were disappointed. It was a hype, especially around Germany going recreational.
Yeah.
And now suddenly it's like, are they going recreational? Or they're waiting? What is it?
There's so much noise.
And how are they going recreational?
Right.
Because it seems like they created a new version of recreational market.
Recreational looks like, yeah.
Yeah. But that's to be expected, but also learned, right? Like what you're saying is a lot of the international companies have either pulled out or really tamped down what's happening in Europe, but there's going to be this whole other industry that evolves there.
I think it's going to be fascinating to see a different type of adult use market, a different model, because I know that the different states have different models. Here in Canada, But in the end of the day, it's all a dispensary. We know how you, at least from the last mile, how you're consuming. It's going to be definitely going to be different in Germany. It seems that it's going to be different in Switzerland and the Czech Republic. So that's curious. It's suddenly a different model, and then countries in the world will be able to decide how we want to the U.S. model or a type of a German-Swiss model.
Yeah. I think the rest of the world will choose a German-Swiss model, to be honest. I mean, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's really about the culture of the country and what they want.
Maybe capitalism versus socialism.
Right, there you go. Well, I'm Canadian. We're sort of somewhere in the middle of those two things. Certainly when it comes to cannabis. I mean, we have...
And I'm sure there will be things that even, when you're going to see these pilots in Germany and Switzerland through pharmacies, people didn't think about all the way through. Because pharmacists are not trained in any way. Are they going to be now trained on 300 different strains? I want to see how that's going to happen.
There's like a very active pharmacy community in Canada that talks about this specifically, is that you need to have basically a cannabis-focused pharmacy to be able to service those customers because the level of complexity around the product is so high.
And it's completely different to the way they prescribing or dispensing
everything
medication.
Else.
Yeah.
When is the last time you went to your pharmacist and started asking him questions about the quality of the product?
Right. It's
that
a given.
Never happened.
Right.
I'm giving you a box and you're saying thank you.
Take it. Yeah.
What does Blue Dream do?
Right. It's a lot, especially on the inhalables.
Yeah.
No, it is
and
interesting.
when you're saying, so one of the ideas in Germany is over the counter. Great. But over the counter, usually you're just picking it up from the shelf. So that's not really over the counter because you still
behind
need
the
to
counter
go
still.
behind the counter, but you don't need a prescription.
Right.
Okay. It's different model. I'm sure there's going to be holes.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the conversation and giving us a lens that is beyond a lot of what we've been talking about the past couple of days, which is almost entirely within a couple thousand miles of this location, but a lot of New York and a lot of California, a lot of Canada. But thank you for the perspective and for what you're doing, and we appreciate you taking time to come by today.
Thank you. That's great.
This is a wrap. It makes it sound like I was going to rap. No, this is a wrap from Planet 13 Cultivated Live. We super appreciate everybody that watched. We will also be wrapping up all this programming and sending it out through social channels over the next days, weeks, and months. So thank you, Krista.
Thank you, Jay.
And thank you, Jeremy. He's not here today.
Congratulations with Cultivated.
Thank you. It's been a great time. Thank you also to the production team, Aardvark, to my esteemed producer, Matt Rosenthal, to the great folks at Planet 13 who have just been awesome hosts.
Incredibly gracious.
Yeah, and all the guests that came by. Yes. Thank you all, everybody. I was going to say get home safe, but most people are probably watching it from their office, so still get home safe. Those that are watching in Las Vegas, please do get home safe. We'll see you at the airport later this afternoon.
Yes.
And we're signing off from Cultivated Live at Planet 13 in Las Vegas.